Cue silence. Friends, greetings. Sunday, 30th of April. Just gone 1 minute past 1 p.m. Central. You'll have to excuse the cockerel in the background. Nothing I can do. I went outside to see my neighbor has tied the cockerel to a fence by its leg on a string, and there's nothing I can do. And there's a cat kind of stalking the cockerel. So the cockerel's calling out for help. There's not much it can do and not much I can do. I might be having chicken for dinner. Very happy to welcome you. Yesterday was an extraordinary 7+ hour broadcast. Thank you for the thousands of people who were looking in on the Lazarus Symposium. And a number of you have joined us today. The numbers are just jumping up. I'm going to be bringing on my stellar first guest shortly. You all know who he is. Doesn't need any second introduction right now. But I will say, before I begin, I just want to acknowledge my mum, because my mum is the best activist I know. She also used to be a news editor and anchor and news person many lifetimes ago. But the more I see her social media thread, I've decided that she's actually my news editor. So I've asked my mum every show to just knock a few memes together for me. First one is this one here. Chronic disease epidemic. We have the sickest generation of children in history. We went from having 6% of our children having chronic disease in the 40s, 50s, and 60s to 54% in 2006. And this was lamented by RFK Jr. And I can tell you this, that every one of these chronic diseases is listed as a vaccine side effect. The manufacturer's inserts of at least one of those 72 doses of vaccines. So you have the coincidence where all of these diseases that suddenly became epidemic in 1989 are all listed on a product that suddenly became ubiquitous in 1989. This is called forensic evidence, friends. Another meme here. Teach your boys to be men before our enemies teach them to be women. Glenn Greenwald. I've been offline a couple of days, so I know I'm a bit late to this, but it is utterly unacceptable and dangerous for senior Pentagon officials to be opining on who should and shouldn't be on TV. Of course, this speaks to Tucker Carlson being removed from the Fox lineup. And this is really off the statement by a Department of Defense official saying we're a better country without him bagging on our military every night in front of hundreds of thousands of people, says a DOD official. So despite the fact that Tucker is speaking pure truth and telling the American people what's going on in their own backyard, now the military officials are speaking to who should and should not appear on mainstream media. Do you have any idea what that looks like, DOD? You morons in the Pentagon? Have you lost sight entirely of your godless remit? You do not get to say who appears on media and who does not. Whoever you are in brass, however many stripes you've got on your jacket, we'll take a goddamn stick to you. The people will tear your throats out. Get back into your lane. That's all I have to say. Right. Finally, want to sign off with this. No thanks. I don't appreciate people who hang around with pedophiles and are linked to the World Economic Forum. Of course, we're speaking about King Charles ascending to the throne, the God King. And my mother signs off her weekly digest with the following: fuck the coronation, feed the poor. Well, I think that just about says it all. We've had enough, Charles. We've had enough, Whitehall officials. We've had enough, you gibbering sock puppets in the Cronus crown of England. We've had enough. We're taking a stick to you too. Breathe your last gasp of Cronus, okay? Wheeze for the next 2 or 3 years, because it's all but over, for God's sake. And you're the only people who can't see it, apparently. In any event, want to quickly bring on Scotty Sachs for a quick hello. Scotty, you've got 1 minute, status quo. What's the world looking like?
Well, Sasha, first of all, kudos to Mom. Come on. This is really some good activism. Your mother, she's going above and beyond, Sasha, to pull your ass out of filling a few minutes of time on AGN. No, I'm just kidding. Sasha, I love what she stands for. I don't know her age, but I assume she's up there in years, and God bless her. But
now, excuse me, just back up right there. Slam that little stick shift into reverse. What do you mean you assume she's up there in age, Scotty Sachs?
I mean, she's older than you.
Ah, very good.
All right. So
Okay.
let me tell you about the world of mainstream media. Sasha, I don't think I have to tell our audience. The media, the great mainstream media, the rise and fall of the mainstream media cabal is upon us. They are dead. Stick a nail in their coffin. No ratings, no revenue. And now the lawsuits are mounting ferociously, as I predicted 2 years ago on the stage at the ARiSE events, that the media would fall through loss of ratings, revenue, and a lot of legal mumbo jumbo coming their way. Fox losing to Dominion is the least of all their worries and lawsuits.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Scotty. I was just about to bring Scott McKay on. You know what? I'll embarrass him. There you go. He's not even in his chair yet. Look at that.
What are you talking about? Like Superman.
That
I
was
just busted out of a phone booth, man. You kidding me?
very good. Patriot Street Fighter Honcho, how are you this fine day?
Oh, after that opening, man, I got to tell you, Sasha, opening a show like that is a bit of an aphrodisiac for me. So you got to give me advance warning, man. That was awesome.
Well, good to see you, Scott. Thanks for joining us today. Are you staying put for the moment in Texas?
No, I mean I'll be on the road in a couple days for a 3-week run. Salt Lake back here for 1 day, and then headed off to Miami. It's going to be about a 2-week trip. So we're getting back on the move again. Going to get Cinderella and big trailer, bikes, everything on the road.
Now, I'm going to be in Austin for a week in the first week of June. I was rather hoping you're going to be in Texas round about then.
I will be there. In fact, you get to stop in. I'll bring you up here to check out the new center while you're here.
Fantastic.
Yeah, good. Be great to have you in Texas.
Okay, friends, count down 90 seconds till I bring on our magnificent guest. Until then, I'm just going to give you the one little piece that went a little bit viral in the last 3 days and got me into quite a bit of trouble. It's only 90 seconds long, but do watch. If you don't have the wherewithal to go and do the researching and the deep diving, that's okay. But then you need to tap into your deeper instinct and ask yourself the question, when did government ever fucking serve you? Ever? Ask the question of yourself and look in the mirror. When did the bank ever serve you? Ever? When did medical science in the hospital context ever serve you? It didn't, and it doesn't, because it can't and it won't. And this is really what the reckoning is. It's a stepping away of the fiction. It's the identifying the organic, sentient, angelic human from the realm of devilishness and fiction that has assailed us now for the past few thousand years, for sure. Okay, friends, bringing the man on, the man of the hour, can't wait. Foster Gamble, so happy to see you, brother.
Great to see you. Wow. Boy, I'm following your mom and a cockerel and the Scotty teams here. This is awesome. All my heroes in one place.
Well, Foster, so good to see you at the Conscious Life Expo a few short weeks ago, and really happy to see you today. Really keen to get your download on a whole bunch of really very pressing issues. You're about to launch your new independent website. So first, I want to start with that and the blog where all of the Thrive archives can be found. If I'm right in saying. This is the whole of the Thrive journey, including your vision at, I want you to tell us actually about your vision at the age of 14 and spending a decade following the money and the energy patterns. You've spent 35 years, more or less, studying dystopia, and you and Kimberly have established tram lines for millions, hundreds of millions of people around the world now. What's your ABC?
Well, thank you. Yeah, when I was 14 years old, I was traveling on a school bus, and I was looking out the window, and I was deeply concerned about energy. I was born shortly after the Hiroshima and Nagasaki events, and I think that's why I came here at this particular lifetime, was to figure out how human beings can relate to energy effectively. And then just like a week before this, there was the whole Bay of Pigs, the whole Cuban invasion thing. And I was a pretty scared 14-year-old about nuclear war and so forth. So I was given this vision, and I clearly saw an atom with the nucleus and the electrons going around, turning into a solar system with the sun and the planets. And then that turned into a human being with the light at the center and the toroidal field around us. And I just remember thinking to myself, I don't know what the heck I was just shown, but I think I was shown the answer to my prayers to understand the nature of energy and how we can relate harmoniously to it. So that was a long time ago. And I spent the rest of my life in my agreement with the universe. You show me what I need to know, and I will collect it, I will cohere it, and I'll get it back out to the universe as powerfully as I can. And the rest is just the details.
Beautiful. Well, you've certainly succeeded there magnificently. You wanted to discuss RFK Jr.'s presidential bid. What are your thoughts?
Well, the big thing that's going on, as you all know, is, the fight is not between men and women and this race and that race and right and left and old and young and the genders. No, those are all the illusions that they want us to buy into. The fight is between the collectivist globalists, this global death cult that wants to control everyone on the planet and kill most of them. The fight is between them and those who know who they are and are willing to stand up for truth and freedom. So it's absolutely fascinating right now as we head toward a presidential run in the US that the truth media drama and the political dramas are really becoming one and the same, because you've got people like Bobby Kennedy Jr. stepping into the race. And obviously he's got, he's got Democrat politics in his DNA, but he's transcended that to a huge degree. Fundamentally, he is a truth teller. And he's been showing that for the last 40 years in his own career. And now all of a sudden he's stepped up and he's calling out the CIA and the CDC and the FDA. And he's talking about, the CIA was involved in killing his dad and his uncle and Martin Luther King. So, and this is just the beginning of what he's saying. As you know well with me, Sasha, I am not a political person. I'm a trans-political person. I think the root of most of our problems is the state itself. So I'm dedicated to moving as rapidly as we can toward a stateless society if we're going to make it. But in the meantime, we're in a very political world. When I see people like Bobby and Ron DeSantis and people like Tulsi Gabbard and Candace Owens and Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Jim Jordan, these people stepping up and actually being willing to risk everything, their lives, their reputation, their incomes, and so forth, in order to bring forward the truth. I'm just super excited. This next year and a half is going to be very dangerous, but it's also going to be very powerful because the truth is arising and it can't be stopped.
Indeed. I've just got to ask you, with Bobby Kennedy Jr., and I'm very, very fond of him for all the right reasons, and I've interfaced with him a few times over the last couple of years and produced a couple of seminal shows that he's featured at the center of. But I have to say, I am seething after yesterday seeing him on television stating very candidly that climate deniers should be thrown in prison. I am appalled by this, and I'm interested to know what your thoughts are on this volte-face.
Well, I was horrified to see that clip too. That clip is at least 10 years old. That wasn't yesterday. And I hope that he has grown since then. We're watching Tucker Carlson as well in front of mainstream media, going through his own transformation into the truth. And now he's acknowledging with great embarrassment, but real humility, how wrong he was about Iraq, how wrong he was about 9/11. He's questioning climate. And we're pretty close with Bobby. And so I haven't talked with him specifically about that. Kimberly's actually with him today. And I showed her that clip to make sure she asked him about it. So, I'll let you know how that goes.
Thank you.
But the fascinating thing is we're all in our own process of waking up. Some of us were privileged to start 30, 40 years ago. Some of us just in the past 6 months to a year.
Thank you. Pacifying me there. That was a goodie. Scott McKay, question for Foster from you.
You know, Foster, good to finally get a chance to meet you. Hats off to the amazing work you've done for all the time you've done it when nobody else in the world was even thinking about those things. So you weren't the most popular kid of course. And it's
thank you. That means a lot coming from you.
And you stand in that gap for a long time when nobody cares, nobody's listening, and they don't like you for it. So my hat's off. That's what a warrior is. It never stops, never backs up. One of the questions I have for you, and this is something that came to my attention as of late, and it's going to be very tricky waters to navigate here, is that these Khazarian mobsters have maintained power for so very long. And from your long perspective of decades here, tell me what you think about this. I've seen some information recently of this infiltration into an alternative media platform like Rumble. And it's very disconcerting what I'm seeing here. And I knew when the CEO they brought in about 8 or 9 months ago, I did a report on that, said, folks, you pay attention here. These things are happening right now. Look who's jumping on board this ship. I think the alternative news media is something that has become so powerful that obviously the other guys aren't going to sit back and just let it happen. They're going to do what they've always done for hundreds of years, thousands. How do you see this playing out now that we have someone like Tucker? Look, if you listen to Amazing Polly, she'll say, hey, this whole thing's a setup. It's a whole setup as for an infiltration opportunity into the world that we now occupy. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you're certainly accurate, in my opinion, in your assessment. They are coming after us with everything they possibly can. No organization is immune to it. So we need to get highly sophisticated in anti-infiltration awareness. And at the same time, you know, after all these years down the rabbit hole, my motto has become truth floats and love wins. And I'm just seeing it everywhere, including, you know, it's a shame to see Fox boot Tucker off. But on the other hand, Tucker might be this might be the perfect metaphor. What Sasha was talking about before is this cockerel tied by a string to the post, and it's yelling like crazy. And now someone went and let Tucker go. So it's been very interesting to see, you know, Newsmax is after him, and Rumble and Spotify and Blaze TV, One American News Network. I don't know where he's going to land, but in his first Twitter, which he brought out, he did this little video. I'm sure you've seen it, like a 10, 20-minute video, something like that. And the thing had, in 2 days, it had 72.7 million views worldwide. And he usually had 3.5 average on his show. That was more than all of the other cable news networks combined for all their shows. So what we're seeing everywhere in these dramas is that the world wants to know the truth. Most of the world, of course, there's a lot who aren't ready yet, and they'll follow along eventually. But just like when we brought Thrive out, we didn't know if anybody would be interested at all. It went completely viral from the first hour and continues to get 500,000 views a month. It's now over 95 million documented views. And that was so encouraging to us because it showed us that people are ready for the truth. And when you get the truth, then you can create solutions commensurate to the problem. So I think there's no way we can lose this. But in the meantime, it's a very dangerous situation.
Very good. Scotty Sachs, a question for the man from you.
Foster, thank you for your resilience over the years. It's amazing, you know, how you keep on keeping on.
Thanks,
I
Scotty.
want to ask you, with the introduction of the mRNA poison into artificial intelligence, the existence of CBDCs, that Biden has already written an executive order to develop a CBDC, and they're doing it around the world. The WHO in May of 2024 is going to vote, or they're planning a global pandemic treaty, which I believe 30 or 40 countries will ratify. Now, Biden won't call it a treaty because he's got to put it in front of Congress, but that's what it is. And they'll undoubtedly shut us down and force vaccine passports. And then throw in the social credit score system. I asked this to G. Edward Griffin, and I want to ask you, how close are they to their one world government? And given these 4 things that put us away, if these 4 things are implemented fully, we really don't stand a chance. I'd like to think they'll never get there, but how close are they?
Well, I think that they're very close, but it's like two gigantic magnets that are the same polarity. With a lot of energy, you can push them very close together, but you can never get them to totally go together, and they'll be fighting back against each other the entire time. People are shocked at how optimistic I am these days. And it's not because I don't know what's going on. It's because I've been so deep down the rabbit hole that I can see the light at the other end of the tunnel. And it's not a train coming our way. It's actually, it's truth and freedom and the true nature of human beings. So part of what's made me so optimistic is that I've spent my entire life since I was 14 studying the physics of the unified field. And the unified field is not just some cute little physics thing. It's the entire boundless nature of reality that we live in. So it's as powerful as anyone could possibly imagine. And the nature of the unified field, and Bucky Fuller described it really beautifully, is action, reaction, resultant. So we've got free will. Someone can lie, they can cheat, they can steal, they can go out and assassinate someone, but then the entire field begins to respond to that. So they've gone, the cabal has gone after health in a big way. And now look how everybody's waking up and demanding health freedom. They're going after the control over the natural world with the global warming scare and so forth. And now everybody's waking up to that. They're trying to control, as you mentioned, the entire economy of the world through central bank digital currencies. And, I think Nigeria was the canary in the coal mine on that one. They tried to do a trial run there, and only 2% of the nation was willing to adopt it. Right. I think they thought, okay, we'll go into some backward African country, and they won't understand what we're doing. Well, in Africa, they really understand government corruption, and they just said, no way. They're doing the same thing with the climate accord, worldwide. It's the small countries who know what's going on who are fighting back and saying no to the COP treaties. They're saying no to the WHO vaccine treaty and so forth. So I could go on into each sector. I've done a whole analysis of this, but the most encouraging thing to me is the unified field is on our side. And now, it acts through human beings. And people are waking up literally by the hundreds of millions on a daily basis.
Beautiful. You're to a unified field. You're talking about the universal coherence restoring to this mutation or corruption in the immanent template or blueprint that we've clearly seen. I mean, from my side, we've been tracking it with the Lazarus Symposium, with, as you know, some of the world's leading scientists, archaeocosmologists, geneticists, and so on. And what we've identified is a corruption in the matrix, which came in the kind of contemporaneous context of how dystopian we are as a civilization. We look back at about 500 years of 1492 being the Babylonian calendric node point, whereupon Hernan Cortes landed on the shores of Mexico, planted a papal flag, and declared dominion over the Americas on behalf of the papacy. In the name of God, genocide was sanctioned, bloodlust was unleashed, and the genocide of the black skin, brown skin, red skin, yellow skins was afoot. It continued all around the surface of the globe. Billions, do not believe the figures in history, billions of souls were massacred, raped, pillaged, murdered under the banner of the Vatican, and the papal doctrines of discovery. We know that 1492 calendric node point was actually corresponding to the very day that the 9 gates of hell were activated and opened up. We also know retroactively that the day that they closed the 9 gates of hell was on the 16th of August, 1987, the day of the harmonic convergence, which of course was one of the most miraculous events that occurred, where in simple terms, all the First Nation peoples of the world stood up at midday, saluted the central sun, from Papua New Guinea to the Aboriginals in all around the world. They didn't have telephones and faxes, and yet they all knew it was an extraordinary morphogenetic activation amongst the shamanic, indigenous, Aboriginal, First Nation peoples of the world, because they knew through the ancestral blood song that was the closing of the gate of the 9 hell gates on that day. And so the activation of the harmonic convergence triggered by my friend, I'm not sure if you knew him, Jose Arguelles.
Yes, I did.
Right. Was an extraordinarily meaningful and impactful event, which led to, through the long count Solkan, to 21st of December 2012, when I think I first met you roundabout. And that led to 21st of December 2020, which was really the end of time itself. So my question to you is, if that these grand cycles and yugas have some real kind of geometric sense to them, and looking around us as we do and see this dystopian morass of governments collapsing and the Vatican in free fall, the Crown of England on the back foot, the banking system, the high street, social ecology, everything in a 180-degree flip, are we seeing and witnessing the end of all democracy, all party politics, all government together?
Well, let me say, first of all, that for me, Sasha, you are the poet laureate of the global sovereignty movement. And if anybody listening, most of you on here have been listening to Sasha for quite a while, but when he came to the Conscious Life Expo a month or two ago in Los Angeles, I went to his talk, and someone as informed and as eloquent as Sasha can just get up and riff for an hour and a half, and it'll be wonderful. But what he did instead was he really spent a lot of time doing his homework, putting together this entire picture that he just gave you a little trailer for. So if you haven't heard that whole story, it blew my mind, and I've been in this for a long time. So go to the Conscious Life Expo website and get access to that talk, because it summarizes the whole thing in the most comprehensive and artistic way that I've ever seen. So back to your question, Sasha, I am dedicating the rest of my life to doing everything that I can to wake people up to the efficacy and the morality of the living in a stateless society. For me, we've been missing a universal morality for the entirety of human history, and it destroys one culture after another. Now it's threatening to destroy life on the planet. So the only serious candidate that I know for a universal morality is not this somebody's God or that somebody's state or whatever. It's the non-aggression principle, which simply states that no being is allowed to initiate force or fraud against another human being except in true self-defense. It's as simple as that. But government itself is, by its very nature, the denial of that, where it only exists because it claims the right to rule and then maintains itself by stealing people's money against their will, calling it taxation, and then going off and controlling money, creating wars, all of that. It's only going to go in this same direction unless we wake up and have the moral compass of the non-aggression principle. And that leads by extrapolation irrevocably to a stateless society. So most people, not on your channel, but in most people out in the public, you mentioned having a society without a government, and their head begins to explode. But once they understand, you realize it's not only could it work, in my opinion, it's the only way that it can work, is if we get rid of this myth of authority where some people claim the right to rule over others. And I'm in the middle of a book right now. I'm writing a book, and my channel, which did launch a couple of weeks ago, it's at www.freetothrive.com. Everything there, it has all of my shows from the Freedom Portal, our films, a couple of hundred blogs, and that's all dedicated to showing the way to this stateless society, because that to me is our way out. And thank goodness that's exactly what the unified field wants. We've got truth, love, and the life force on our side.
Beautifully stated. Thank you. Cyborg in chief, you get to throw another boomerang at the man.
I got to tell you, having the whole concept put out there of no government is going to freak out those who are hanging on foster to that duality, Republican, Democrat, left, right, etc. And it's really hard to get people to understand that that's not the natural order of things, because they've always had it, that we need that, whether it's capitalism, it has to be this way. Somebody has to lose, somebody has to win. So I think it's a very bold, projection that needs to be expanded on by all of us. I mean, the challenge I see with our world of the alternative media community of influencing people to a different opinion is that it's still caught up in that. We've got to move away from it. And what you're describing here is, it reminds me of Dr. David Hawkins' book, Quantum Physics, Power versus Force. We are making this leap because I just saw something this morning. Sasha, I'll share this with this video that somebody sent me to you because it's fascinating. It's in the realm of what you always talk about. It's taken these things, the layman, to a higher level of understanding what our DNA is. But simply spoken, it's really easy in layman's term. Power versus force describes a point of view. Power is when you can put a point of view out there and everybody gets to speak. Here's a point of view. Power is when the society as a whole, or global society, is drawn to that ideal and they move toward you. Force is over here when this ideal can't get them in that direction, or the planet in that direction. Then they use these tools, what you call force banking, money, all these things, to force people to go in this direction. And I boil it down to how it was when we were young, like say in the 60s, 70s. If there was a bad guy in town, or there was a crook, or there was a business guy that would rip people off, we know what happens in small towns. Once word gets out, nobody does business with this person because it's the credibility of the good people who are able to share the idea that this is a dark energy, low frequency mindset in this person. Therefore, don't do business with them. If they're a liar, just being a liar where I come from, if you were the town liar, everybody knew you were a liar. And that kind of, it's like being in a public stockade in a way. Nobody wanted to occupy that space unless this person didn't care. So getting our world to understand how we can operate without government, rulers, tyrants, dictators, is to say to people, look, how do you think God architected the concept of our reality that we were gifted to start with? Meaning, here's a beautiful planet, all the resources you can imagine. And not only that, the main resource is the creative power of our being connected to the creator, that if we need something, we can create anything to have the world we want. Why do you think you need somebody to govern you and your affairs and tell you we're here to protect you? We don't need any of that. We have that in our creation. And I think these are the things, as what you're talking about, that has to be spoken of from here forward very boldly and vociferously, so people start, even in our community, the podcast community, to get them to stop talking about this duality world that we have to win. It isn't. It's going to occupy the space that doesn't exist. And it's what you're talking about. We don't need government. We need connection to our DNA, our creator, and let's put our hands together, arms together, lock arms, and start marching toward taking this planet and fashioning it all ourselves together into what it should be, instead of one person lording over another.
Yeah, it's a beautiful description, Sky. I appreciate that. And, Sasha's done a lot of work on this as well. That when I've traced back the childhoods of these psychopaths who are trying to take over the entire world right now. And my friend Marshall Rosenberg of the Nonviolent Communication spent years working with murderers in prison. And he said every single one had been abused as a child. And the horrible things that they did were a deep desire to have somebody else feel the level of pain that they felt inside. And now that dynamic, through the whole MK Ultra mind control and so forth, is being used by these people who need not to be in control. They need healing. They need to be obsoleted from power. They're now using those same dynamics. And COVID is a perfect example of it. Now they're going to try to do the same thing with social credit and CBDCs and so forth. They come after you with one trauma after another to keep you afraid, so that you keep buying into mommy or daddy need to come and protect me. But the fact of the matter is, now the principles, what I love about your work and ours is that we're dealing with principles. We talk about politics, but that's not where the solutions are going to come from. And the ethical principles and the scientific principles are finally coming together. We are each, as human beings, a circuit, literally an electrical circuit between space and the earth. And if that's free, if it's sovereign and can move, its creativity is unleashed. If it's short-circuited by fear, abuse, control, lockdown, sickness, and so forth, then literally it short circuits. And that's what happened to these controllers. And that's what they're trying to do to everyone else. So the sovereignty can be healing. It unleashes the creativity of humanity. It happens one person at a time, but now it's emerging worldwide.
You know, just to underscore what you just said about butchering our kids and the source code of their lives being the kind of mutation that then evolves into psychopathy and sociopathy. There's a very interesting little fact here, which I'm not sure that you know. After we did the International Tribunal for Natural Justice Westminster Proceedings and the Commission of Inquiry into Human Trafficking and Child Sex Abuse in London, the big takeaway for me was when I spent time speaking with Karina Hutzabout, the famous criminologist, who has, in the course of her extraordinary career, met with most of the mass murderers and psychopaths and sociopaths who've faced, the death execution, and those that are incarcerated for life. And I asked her the question, because she's one of the commissioners on the ITNJ Commission. And I asked her the question, I said, what is the median common touch point of these psychopaths and these sociopaths? Expecting her to say, oh, well, they're all from generational satanic families and they all got sodomized at 3 years of age and had their kundalini flipped. That's what I was expecting. She said, you won't believe it if I tell you. She said the common touchstone between the most abhorrent and evil psychopaths and sociopaths that I've met throughout 30 odd years is that they were loved too much by their mothers and they came from good, stable families. And she said, yeah, exactly. And she said, it's like this. The mother is overbearing, gives far too much love to little Tommy, way too much love. Everything little Tommy does is magnificent. Oh, he's a superstar from the age of dot all the way to the age of 18, 19, 20. When's Tommy going to leave home? 21, 22. Tommy's not leaving home. 23, 24. Tommy's getting fed 3 times a day and staying rent-free. Tommy's having a great time. Tommy ends up becoming the psychopath, the sociopath, the rapist, the serial killer. Because when Tommy goes out to the real world doesn't love Tommy like Mummy does. It rejects Tommy at every level. And that's what causes this flip. Isn't that extraordinary?
Wow.
Yeah, I can see that dynamic. I haven't heard that one before, and I don't think that they're mutually exclusive.
Right.
She's got a lot of evidence for that, as I do for the others. But the fact of the matter is that in the system that so much of the planet buys into right now, those people are naturally going to go to the top of this pyramid because they don't have the scruples. They're going to lie, cheat, steal, or kill, or do whatever it takes to be one of the controllers rather than one of the controlled. So the core thing we can do is actually get rid of the system that empowers those people. Then, as Scott was saying before, then they'll get the healing that they need. They'll be recognized in the community as really needing to grow up, and they can get support for that rather than trying to rule the world and depopulate it.
Well, the thing is the distinction is that she was interviewing and meeting with the sociopaths and psychopaths that got caught. And you're referring to the ones who are even craftier because they don't get caught. They end up becoming the president.
Yeah.
So last question for me to you, Foster, is you mentioned parasitic trends and the emergent solutions. Can you elaborate on this and also just speak about the quintessential silver lining to this pandemic that we've seen?
Yeah, I mentioned some of the parasitic trends like the health and environment, the economics, the justice. If you look at governance, they're now trying to use government. They're trying to use governance to actually rule over everyone with the total surveillance, tracking, 15-minute cities, all of the social credit, all that kind of stuff. But if you go on into media, the same thing. They've tried to censor down media, and look how it's exploding now. The Politico, which is one major left-wing magazine in the United States, a few months ago, did a poll of their own progressive readership on where they got their news. And 62% of the demographic between 18 and 45 said Tucker Carlson. So that's how dramatically that is changing. And if you look at the prominent lefties who are now waking up, not just to swing to the right, that's going to be the same old deal if they make that mistake, but to actually lift off the political plane of polarity into freedom. Look at Matt Taibbi and Glenn Greenwald. You got Russell Brand, Elon Musk, Dave Rubin, Naomi Wolf, Bobby Kennedy, Michael Rechtenwald, Michael Schellenberger, Tulsi I mentioned, Mickey Willis, the list goes on and on. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people listening were former lefties, but that rug got pulled out from under us by the Chinese Communist Party and the deep state. And now there's more and more people waking up to it. Another example is education. They've tried to turn it into such a propaganda factory that now homeschooling in the U.S. has gone from 3% to 11% just in the last 2 years. In terms of science, people are losing their respect for science because they're turning it into scientism and trying to use technocracy to ultimately create this transhumanist movement to turn over life itself on planet Earth to a bunch of digital robots. And the reaction, that one we're just getting started, but the others are there's a huge unstoppable movement against them in all of those cases. So you mentioned the silver linings. Shall I mention a few of what I see as the silver linings?
Yep.
Okay, so people are starting to grow their own food. I mentioned education and truth media. More and more people realize there's something fundamentally wrong. And so more people are thinking about rights. Conspiracy theory is now becoming something that has a nice glow on it rather than the CIA's propaganda of insult. The terrain theory is beginning to emerge in health.
Yeah.
And maybe most importantly of all is as people are waking up to what's really going on, they're losing a lot of friendships, or at least, as Mickey Willis said, people they used to think were their friends.
Yeah.
And what they're doing is they're finding new relationships based on truth and freedom. And that level of authentic connection beyond the traditional polarities is exactly what I think humanity needs right now. So as much as I would never choose this scenario in the world right now, I wouldn't write this script for anyone. Apparently, this is what was needed to wake people up into their own personal sovereignty to create a thriving world.
Beautiful, Foster. Well, look, you're under instruction to get back to your Sunday, and I'm really grateful that you let me cannibalize your time today. And more than that, you're under instruction to give that extraordinary wife a kiss from me. I've been in love with her since I first laid eyes on her. There you have it. I've said it. It's out in the open. Please send Kimberly my love. And it's
you and me both. I will certainly do that. Thanks for the honor of being on this show.
All right.
See you all later.
Bye, Foster. Thank you. All right, friends. Well, stand by. Our next guest is the remarkable Ora Nadrich, a pioneering mindfulness expert, international speaker, coach, founder, and president of the Institute for Transformational Thinking, and an RFK Junior led Children's Health Defense California chapter board member. Forgive me for scrambling those words. When asked about Ora's work, New York Times best-selling author Marianne Williamson has said, "When she speaks, I listen. When she writes, I read it. And when she gives advice, I heed it." Ora's rare combination of insight, intuition, compassion, and charisma has made her one of the most effective and sought-after coaches in Los Angeles, someone Marianne also counts as a source of inspiration and a treasure. From a young age, she's been a seeker of knowledge with a particular interest in discovering how thought works, leading her to becoming a life coach and developing her simple but highly effective questioning method designed to uncover pitfalls and potential in thinking, and helping us to shape and determine destiny. She's a sought-after expert in the field of mindfulness, transformational thinking, and self-discovery, and she created her highly effective Says Who method, which allows her clients to ask simple questions that result in profound personal and professional transformation. She's the author of Says Who, How One Simple Question Can Change the Way You Think Forever. I have to just stop there and say, I think that's a brilliant title. When I read it earlier this morning, it really stopped me. And I thought, yes, absolutely. Just that. Says who? Question mark. That is such an important and axiomatic insertion into the corruption of how we think and how we view ourselves and the world. Her other book, Live True, A Mindfulness Guide to Authenticity, named one of the 100 best mindfulness books of all time by the Book Authority. Her work has been featured in Thrive Global, Fast Company, NBC News, and a whole phalanx of others I'm not going to relay here. Very, very happy to meet you today. Ora, welcome to ARiSE.
Hello, Sasha. So nice to be here with you today.
You're joined by Scotty Sachs from Sovereign Radio and Patriot Street fighter Scott McKay. Are you familiar with these honchos?
Hello, gentlemen. I'm happy to be in such wonderful company.
Pleasure to meet you, Ora.
Very good. So, Ora, I wanted to ask you first question. You were on the exploratory campaign committee for RFK Jr. Can you briefly explain what that entails?
Well, what it means is that before someone announces that they're going to be running for public office, they can do something called, the testing the waters phase. And what that means is they need to really see the feasibility of them running for office. So that can mean they go across state, they meet people, they get to know people, they let people know what they're running for and who they are, what are they about. And I think we saw very quickly that people responded to Bobby and let them know very fast that they were very receptive to him running as president of the United States.
Very good. And it looks as it's boding rather well, I think, at first glance. It's looking rather good. Some controversy that arose, which you couldn't have ignored in the last couple of days, was some, I think, resurfacing of media of him stating quite candidly that climate deniers should be thrown in prison. Are you aware of that controversy and how that might play out? It's not going to play out very well if he still holds true to that.
Yes, I know. I mean, I think there's a distinction between an environmentalist, which Bobby is and has been, and, somebody who is speaking on the side of climate change, which has changed exponentially, as we know. Yeah. What we know about climate change today is perhaps not what an environmentalist like Bobby knew once before. So there's a lot of confusion between those two. And I do believe that Bobby is a diehard environmentalist, and climate change issues are part of that. Everything is very muddled today. Everything is thrown together in one big stew, and it's just this hybrid of thought. So I think going after Bobby, they're going after him as an anti-vaxxer. They're going after him now for what he said about, climate change. And I think he needs to explain that perhaps a little bit better. We need to delve into that more. Very good. Well, he's such a fiercely intelligent and soulful person. He's not going to have any difficulty doing that. Now that he's announced his presidential run, do you believe that an RFK Jr. candidacy will bring about a paradigmatic shift in the Democratic Party, possibly even a rebirth? Can the Democratic Party be revitalized, do you imagine? Well, I'd like to think so, but the Democratic Party is not what it once was. Right. We're not who we once were. Do you know? The whole political paradigm is not what it once was. So it's great to be hopeful and believe that, yes, a shift can happen, but what does the rebirth really mean? We're talking about a rebirth perhaps of, a type of rebirth that we don't even really know what that is yet, and time will reveal. So we can look at somebody like Bobby and say, we would love to see the values, the morals, the ethics, the integrity, the lack of corruption. Hopefully he can bring that back to the Democratic Party. But I also understand that the Democratic Party is not what it once was. Yeah, not by a long chalk. Exactly right. Scotty Sachs, question for Ora.
Yes, I want to hear about your says who method. Can you frame that up in like a couple minutes?
Well, we know that everything comes down to thought, don't we? I mean, everything is born from a single thought. So my says who method was a method that I created for transforming negative and fear-based thoughts. I think that everything really comes down to the thinking mind, and the horrors of the world are created because of an unawareness of our own thoughts, you know? So it's a method that I created long ago, and I subscribe to it wholeheartedly. I think until one is the master of their own thoughts, they really can't master anything.
Very good.
Does that satisfy you, Scotty?
Question people can ask themselves that changes the way they think forever, which is what the book is, I think, the subtitle.
You know, people think that somebody else is thinking for them, which is really amazing. I mean, the whole concept of questioning your thoughts was really quite surprising to a lot of people when my book came out. The whole notion of questioning thoughts was like, gee, I didn't really know that I could question my thoughts, was a response that I got from many people. You know, do you start your day questioning your thoughts, or do you just accept them readily? You know,
Good
know
point.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, absolutely right. Bang on. Before I pass you to Scott McKay, I just wanted to ask you, as humanity is facing ever more authoritarianism, how would you recommend people stay focused and centered and out of this dragnet?
Well, going straight to mindfulness, be mindfully aware of the obedience to authority, and to what expense is it of our own personal freedom. So if we're going to succumb to this, you know, so-called compliance, obedience, you know, allowing ourselves to be controlled, isn't that what we witnessed for the last 3 years?
Right.
People went into a heightened state of fear, and they allowed themselves to be taken over by this fight or flight notion of fear. And we saw, you know, up close and personal, how people can be very obedient. And so I think if we haven't learned from what just happened in the last 3 years, then we'll just continue allowing ourselves to be taken over by authority, to, you know, I say, you says who? You know,
Yeah.
we're presented with these mandates and we're being told what to do. I think, you know, you mentioned my book says who. Maybe we should go back and say, well, says who? Says
Right.
who? Says who's that I should be that obedient and comply to what, an authority figure? And I think it was your guest Gamble that was talking about, you know, how we really do need to understand that we have the power to stand up to these powers that be, that we've allowed authority to dictate what our future is going to be. As
Right.
we all too well with the World Economic Forum, you know, the whole notion of the new world order, just let's deconstruct the word order.
Yes. Yeah, well, exactly. And if we have the courage and the grace and the poise, the inner poise to begin that process of deconstruction, as you put it, and disidentification from a luciferic false light reality, which has indentured us, mind, body, and soul, into this kingdom of the devil. And it really is a simple source code, or the square root of getting out of that matrix mind, is really beginning the process of never doing anything that offends the soul. I think it really comes down to that. Would you agree?
Well, and I also say that fear is the soul of the matrix.
Interesting.
Do you know what I mean? It's like therein lies the rub.
Right.
You know, all you have to do is, you know, talk about deconstruction. Look at the unprecedented amount of fear that we witness globally. It's unprecedented. So we're not going to get anywhere. We could talk about the political machine. We could talk obedience to authority. Oh, he mentioned the propagated term of conspiracy theories, you know, which doesn't hold true today.
Yeah.
So, you know, really, Sasha, what I can say to that is, we know we're in the midst of a great awakening. This is a paradigm shift of which we have not seen the likes of in our lifetime. And so what are we going to do about it? You know, there are going to be those, in my book, Time to Awaken, I say we're living in a parallel universe. We're living with those that are awake and those that are asleep. And those that are asleep are in a state of semi-consciousness, which is a state of consciousness that when we're literally sleeping.
Yes.
When we go to bed at night, we're in a state of semi-consciousness. So unless we wake up, you know, it's not going to be game over.
Indeed, indeed. Well, a man who thinks more than most, Scott McKay. Questions for Aura.
Aura, great to have you today. Fascinating, you know, mindset on the idea of these thoughts, you know, where they come from. And I've had, and I'll throw this at you and get your opinion on this. it's a walk, quite a long walk, a journey from where people are today to get to where they need to be to get on this ascension track, understanding really what the world's all about.
Right.
And I can tell you, the small piece of advice that I could give people to try to help that become a correlation in their life is, and I think of a deep state criminal, likely the Getty family, J. Paul Getty, and his 6 bullet points formula for success. Number 6 was observe the masses and do the opposite. See where the masses are going and go in the opposite direction. And I would say that it is very true today, more so than ever, because even in the world that I kind of sort of, I wouldn't say stumbled into, the podcast world absolutely stumbled into that. But when it first broke out, people knew who I was because I figured out how to turn a camera on one day, and I started laying out this viewpoint, this intel operation of how humanity was being provoked to wake up with this information and where we are in the process. Boom, this thing explodes. So now in this world, everybody's intel analysis. Here's what I think day to day. So I walked away from that when we were on tour with Sasha. It was very costly for me to do that, but I had to do it anyways. And but the thing about was I had to think about, why am I thinking about doing this? Because everything that I just basically accomplished to give me buoyancy in my life was going to disappear. And I did it anyways because I knew it comes down to this: what is the right thing for people and humanity? So what I thought might happen after that tour, to go back to ground zero in my whole life, that didn't happen. And now today, walking away from day-to-day intel, like people say, he's got no intel. I got a ton of intel that comes from special operations people, high levels. I just don't sit here and disseminate it all day because there's this competition out there. So I keep asking myself, why don't I want to do what I've done for 30 years every day of my life? And I'm thinking, why do I want the competition of the whole world that we're in now? Do I not want to go head to head? It's like, I don't know what the hell it is. I just know I don't want to be in that space anymore. I want to talk about stuff that Sasha talks about. He was one of the first people that opened something up for me in the way he sees the whole global and this geometric architecture of what we live in. And it made me think, hey man, okay, this is why I feel this way. It's why I'm talking about the Ascension track and how we got to look forward to and thinking about the Garden of Eden. We can't get this thing to come down and stand there. What do we do next? We got to think now to manifest it. So am I on this right track here? Just saying, I don't care why. It has to be coming from somewhere else. Just go with it. Let go of what you want to hang on to here, and whatever happens, happens. It's the only thing I can explain what makes me not. I'm thinking about, why the hell do I not want to do what I did every day for decades to get to this point now? Like, doesn't matter why. I'm pulled this way, and I'm thinking, I'm just going to go there, see what happens.
Go in the direction that you're pulled. Go in the direction that you're called. Go in the direction that you resonate with. We've already had these conversations ad nauseum. We've been in this, I don't know what to call it. Well, it is. It's the Great Awakening. It's the Great Reveal. It's the Great Remembering. You can call it whatever you want. We're in it, and we've now walked on this journey for a while. What we don't want to do is we want to be very mindful of not staying stuck in the same conversations. You talk about ascension. That's what it's about. What is the new mind about? We've already experienced the old mind. We're inhabiting a new mind to bring in the new world. So when you're speaking my language, when you talk about ascension, there really isn't anything else to focus on. We could talk about all the other stuff that preoccupied our minds, and we were trying to deconstruct that and make sense and connect the dots and do all that. And say, okay, that's great. There's plenty of people that are going to still do that. Those of us that know this is a shift that is amazing, because a lot of the darkness that we see has been very hard to look the monster in the face. Now we have to recognize that we're up against something like artificial intelligence consciousness. Well, what about our consciousness? If we don't come on, people, let's get on with it here. Let's be aware of what is the new consciousness of the new age. We don't have any time to waste when we realize that artificial intelligence could have a consciousness that could out-consciousness us. So I'm like, so to your point, you are so on the right track. And Sasha, kudos to you for, always talking about this. And now it's time to only talk about this, I feel. You know what I mean? Like, enough of this,
Very good.
this other stuff that we've been talking about ad nauseum. We've been there, we've done that. We now need to prepare ourselves. And that's really sort of, without giving the last chapter of my book away, it's like, okay, now we're here. We've awakened. Now what? We can't worry about who isn't awake. We can't try to convince our family members and our loved ones, to wake up with us, because they just might not. It might not be their time to ascend. They might never ascend. And as much as I'm a big believer in compassion, and I was kind of stuck in that place for a while, like, oh my God, we were all trying to shake everybody that we could to say, wake the what up, we can't stay stuck there anymore, because those of us that are already awakening, and it's a continuum, we need to keep on that track, and we can't stay on the track of those that are asleep, that are in, that are in a trance, that are, walking zombies on the planet. We can't get stuck with that. That to me is a tremendous waste of time. And I actually posted something on my Instagram today about higher intelligence. When we're on the track of ascension, we are aligned with the ability to raise our consciousness, to raise our frequency. And that's really what, to me, we should be focusing on, because then we can have those extraordinary downloads that are going to give us the information it's like the blueprint to navigate what lies ahead.
Yeah, very good.
I don't want anything interrupting that. We can focus all we want on what, the World Economic Forum is doing, and Klaus Schwab, and this one and that one, and Elon Musk, and, whoever, the usual suspects, I think we should focus on our own ascension at this point. I hope
Very
that's
good.
the question.
I love it. Well, actually, it's a perfect closing. It brings me to a perfect closing question for you. Marianne Williamson is a populist hero, quite rightfully, to millions, hundreds of millions of people all around the globe. She clearly regards you as a hero. My question to you is, who do you regard as a hero? Speaking to your, listening to you earlier on, I was thinking she must be up on Jiddu Krishnamurti and David Bohm and those amazing conversations.
Yeah. I was weaned on those minds. You know what I mean? I was a teenager, reading all the great philosophers, the Socratic thinking, the mysticism. I have a book that you didn't mention called Mindfulness and Mysticism. I took mindfulness into the whole area of mysticism. With a foreword by His Holiness the Dalai Lama.
He of the tongue, yes. Say no.
Actually, maybe we should read. Yes, let's not go down that rabbit hole, shall we? So, who do I admire? I admire the courageous, brilliant minds that were, and I admire the courageous, brilliant minds that are, and I admire the courageous, brilliant minds that will be.
So it's not Prince Charles. That's a joke.
Sasha, you're in the UK. I'm not. I don't have that sort of romantic notion of the monarchy. But
I certainly don't, and that was a jibe at the monarchy. I'm not in the United Kingdom. I haven't been there for some years. Just so you know, I'm in the Yucatan Peninsula here, and staying as far away from the British Crown as I can possibly remain. But Ora, it's such a delight meeting you today, and thank you for joining us on ARiSE Guerrilla. Look forward to the next time.
Yes, thank you, Sasha and gentlemen. I too.
God bless you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Well, friends, I don't know why Joanne popped up on the screen there. That's not supposed to happen. Remove. Thank you. Okay, all good. Friends, running a couple of minutes late, and I need to bring my next luminary on, one of my favorite human beings on the planet, flanked by two other remarkable souls. I'm bringing on Pastor Artur Pawlowski for a second time, the Polish-Canadian pastor, activist, and well-known advocate for the poor and the homeless, where he exposed horrific corruption in the homeless shelters. He's the lead pastor at Street Church Ministries, which took the gospel into the middle of the worst places for drugs and prostitution in Calgary, an area known as Needle Park. Because of his public anti-narrative views, his life has been endangered a number of times. He's been an outspoken critic of the COVID agenda, keeping his ministries open and fighting mandates, and of course has faced jail time as a result. He now faces a new case he's going to tell us about shortly. Artur gave up working on his businesses many years ago to focus on service. And within a few years, he went from a small unknown ministry to an organization that was operating from 7 locations in Calgary alone, producing a TV show that broadcast 120 million satellite dishes, distributing hundreds of thousands of meals per year, and starting similar ministries in several different countries. He became instrumental in reinstating the March for Jesus in different countries, including Canada, and fought for policies that were implemented by the government to improve the lives of the poor in Canada. His advocacy work was recognized many times by the media, and he's received numerous awards and has been recognized by many distinguished scholars, religious leaders, and groups. I think he is an absolute hero in our day. I love the man greatly, and so happy to welcome him to the show. Pastor Artur, welcome to our show. There you are.
Thank you so much for having me in. It's always a pleasure.
You're looking in very, very fine fettle, I'm glad to say. Have you had to beat off any more idiots in costume from your church?
Well, I have been charged by the biggest lie that we have ever seen over 40 times. So I have fought them left and right. I won every single trial, including the Court of Appeal. But this Tuesday, 2 days from now, it's my final verdict for terrorism, for my participation in a truck convoy. I was charged as the first Canadian ever in the history of this country. My sermon was on trial word by word. It has never been done before. I was charged with terrorism. I was charged with mischief, over 5,000. I was accused by the Canadian government of causing Canada's economy over $400 million worth of damages for my sermon to the truckers and farmers at the border of Montana and Alberta. So the craziness was unbelievable. My verdict is coming on Tuesday. So if there are any believers listening to this, pray that God's will be done. And we're doing a church service, believe it or not, on the steps of the courthouse. So we have not been broken. We have no intention of being broken. This is just the beginning for us.
Well, God bless you, and may the grace of God continue to stream through you. You glow in the dark as far as I'm concerned. Scott McKay, Patriot Street Fighter, question from you to Pastor Artur Pawlowski.
Pleasure to see you again, sir. We did meet at Reawaken. I got to tell you, you are looking magnificent. So whatever they're doing to you, they're losing badly. Because wow, I hope they're ready.
I'll tell you, Scott, what is working for me. I mean, this is just a private menu on my on my plate. I have been eating lots of hyenas lately. We are called to be lions, so I kept eating well, because there is so many hyenas all around me. So if you want to look like me, I guess start eating the hyenas.
Very good, very good.
I got to tell you, I saw something this morning. Somebody had sent me, and some brilliant lady decides to get out of a car, walk around the other side of the car, open a door where her husband was, and get into an argument in a tiger refuge. Tiger walks right up, grabs her, hauls her away. I'm like my granddaddy used to say, there's no shame in being dumb, but there isn't staying dumb. And these people obviously can't figure out that you have the We the People nation of the world on your side. And I got to tell you, you're doing exactly what we've been trying to provoke people to do, is to stand up. And when you do, like you have, it takes, believe me, it takes brass balls to do that, what you've done. And you've never backed down. I've watched them haul you off an airplane when you left here to get back home, and you have never backed up 1 inch. And if anybody is exemplifying the Patriot Street Fighter blood, it's absolutely you. So now that you're in this position, and ultimately, I believe you certainly win this, especially when you're going right into the mouth of the dragon, bringing the masses of people with you to show them this is who you're going up against. It's not me. It's these people, because they have to know that obviously they got to play these charades out, because they've become this weak. They now have to fight out in the open and show people what they are. So with this particular sentencing that you're going to go through, okay, is this an appeal, or is this the first round of sentencing? And if it goes against you, what's the next step for you?
Yeah, this is the first round. So I have won multiple appeals. Sometimes the lower judges will go against the law, against the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, against the Constitution or Criminal Code of Canada. But no matter what happens, I mean, I have submitted my life into the hands of my God. So no matter what he decides, it's fine. It's okay with my soul. I'm facing 10 and a half years of imprisonment, but I'm telling you, we already won. The enemy just doesn't know it yet. So if this judge goes against the law of this land, we're going to immediately appeal it. But there is something more that is happening. I have become a leader of a political party because I was sick and tired of watching those corrupted devils running my beloved nation. So I was waiting for a savior, telling you the truth, for someone to rise up, but no one was coming. So I said to my wife, to my family, well, I guess if no one is coming, I'll throw my name in. And we have thousands of people coming and joining this party. It's called, are you ready? Solidarity Movement of Alberta. Solidarity based exactly on the solidarity that won this great empire of communism and socialism behind the Iron Curtain just a few years ago. So instead of reinventing the wheel, I decided, okay, work for the Polish people, then it's going to work for the patriots now. And we're growing. We're going to have amazing candidates in this upcoming election. And I'm excited. It's a very exciting time. This is not the time for the lions to go to sleep. This is the time for the lions to roar. We are to go out there and roar and fly like the American eagle is supposed to be flying.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely right. Well stated. Scotty Sachs, a question for Pastor Artur.
Pastor Arthur, good to see you. You're like the Muhammad Ali of pastors. You float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. And I love that about you. You know, the first time I saw you, you were on a video. I was watching a video of you. I think you were in one of your facilities, one of your buildings in Canada, the police center. And boy, did you lay it. This calm man I see here, calm, cool, and collect, Pastor Arthur, was anything but. You were really ripping on these cops. You were not afraid to speak your mind. 2 years later, I interviewed you at the Reawaken America tour. Would have been spring of 2021, 2 years ago. I saw the same fight in you. Here we are 2 years later. You obviously haven't lost any of your fight. It's all there. What have you learned? What's changed in your life? What have you learned from all this? What would you say is a takeaway for you in the couple of years you've been in the fight?
Well, I have been a fighter all my life. I was a professional boxer, so I totally understand the concept of Muhammad Ali. I was a martial art expert, a black belt, so I have been teaching people how to fight. So I guess in my DNA, in my blood, was always that David, the fighter against Goliaths, right inside of me. When I became a Christian, I've learned a champion, a one that never loses. And so now me and him, we are together destined for victory. What I learned that what I actually knew, but this just confirmed all of that in my own heart, that quitters never win. Winners never quit. We are keep plowing no matter what. It doesn't matter how big is the enemy. It doesn't matter how well equipped is the enemy. You are keep pounding no matter what. There is absolutely no time right now to throw a towel for any one of us. When we said yes to this fight, is unto the death, onto the final moments of our life. What I've learned that there is a huge need of courageous examples. I think we are lacking real men right now around the world. We are lacking real clergymen, real shepherds of God's people. We are lacking examples. We need to show the whole world, to the people, that, hey, David can still win against Goliath. So that's what I've learned, that we need to keep spreading the message around left and right, keep telling people that if I can do it, look, a funny guy with a funny accent, straight from Poland, grew up behind the Iron Curtain. If I can do it, that means you can do it as well. I think that's what we have to take out of this. You guys did it, others did it. I mean, I absolutely love America. I love American people. I had such an amazing time during my tour in the United States of America. I feel American. I think Americans are Polish immigrants, telling the truth. So I love America. I love the American eagle. And when I arrived on your soil, I remember God spoke to me and he said, tell that great American eagle that it's time for that eagle to rise up again and start flapping its wings. So this is our time, my friends. I am not intimidated by the 10 years of imprisonment. I'm not intimidated by their guns, their tasers, their uniforms. I'm not intimidated by their so-called power, because my God is bigger. I mean, it's like a pack of hyenas. The only thing that we need to do is just call few of our own, form a pride of lions, and it's over for the hyenas. And as you can tell, I have been eating very well.
Excellent. Very happy to hear it. Well, I hate to be the one to tell you, but if you were to visit Washington District of Columbia, and if you were to enter the White House and the Oval Office, you would find no American eagle there. You might find an American rat there, but you certainly won't find an eagle. So I want to bring on two other luminescent Canadians. Have to say, I've been instructed by my producer that I'm not allowed to give them an introduction. They have to introduce themselves. So I want to bring on first Laura, Lynn, Tyler, Thompson. Very happy to make your acquaintance, ma'am.
Sasha, it's so good to see you again. I actually interviewed you about 3 years ago, and we had a profound, amazing, lengthy conversation, and I've never forgotten it. Thanks for having me. I'm blessed to be here on behalf of Artur, one of my dear friends.
Well, very, very happy to make your renew our acquaintanceship.
Yes.
Do forgive me. Laura, I also want to bring on Kevin Johnston, former mayoral candidate in Calgary and host of one of the most popular truth podcasts in that part of the world. Kevin, you're very, very welcome here today.
Thanks for having me. My name is Kevin J. Johnston, born in Toronto, and I've left the province of Ontario behind. I now reside in Calgary, pretty close to Pastor Artur Pawlowski, who's this incredible guy I just heard about on the show. Of course, I'm kidding. We've been friends since May of 2017, and it's an honor to be a friend of his. And it's also an honor to be known by Laura Lynn Tyler Thompson, who really is that beautiful in person, everybody. I know I've seen her this close. We call ourselves the #1 podcast in the country because that's been true at a few points. Our audiences have been huge and our audiences have been tiny. It depends on how many court injunctions that I have preventing me from speaking in general. I've had 4 separate court injunctions in Canada preventing me from being on the internet, preventing me from touching a cell phone, preventing me from going to public events and speaking. So like Pastor Artur Pawlowski, yes, I've been arrested, 22 times now. I've spent 7 months in maximum security prisons, and they're trying to get me locked up some more. So all to get the smile off my face, which ain't going anywhere.
Well, I have to ask, I mean, just looking at you, I'm assuming all of these court injunctions are because you're a rabid, slavering terrorist. I mean, you look like a rabid terrorist to us, but why these court injunctions?
Well, they don't like the fact that somebody has a voice. Pastor Art, Laura Lynn Tyler Thompson, Chris Sky, myself, Pat King, we've all been ardently against things like the radical LGBTQs. Obviously, the fake pandemic that came out. I even wrote a book called Masks Are BS in 2019. I debunked all of this at the very beginning of it all. The Toronto police came to my door to tell me if I released the book that they would arrest me. So why do they want me and Art and everybody here quiet? Is because we have the ability to influence. Our podcasts, as small as they may be in comparison to mainstream media, are simply better than mainstream media because all we do is tell the truth and smile while we're doing it. The government doesn't know how to combat that. They don't know how to debate that. So what they do is they utilize the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, which gets $1.4 billion a year, tax dollars per year, to slander all of us, to libel all of us, to use phrases such as racist mayoral candidate Kevin J. Johnston says something, does something, drinks a cup of coffee. That is how it works here. So they're going to continue to beat all of us down as much as they possibly can, not realizing what they're doing is pushing the pendulum to the exact opposite extreme. That's not good either. Believe me, I don't like the extreme right. So we have a lot of folks now that are catching on to the fact that there never was a pandemic. They took medicine that they didn't need that was poisonous for no reason whatsoever. Their businesses were shut down. And now what they're doing is turning to people like Art, Laura, and myself to guide them through the next phase, the next process, which is lawsuit upon lawsuit against the government. Obviously, they don't want us talking. That is where all the assaults come from. I mean, Art and I have been assaulted by Antifa numerous times. Art had his garage lit on fire. There was an attempt on my life live on Facebook that Mark Zuckerberg took down because he said it was violence. Well, yeah, it was violence. It was violence against me, a mayoral candidate in the city of Calgary. They can't obviously have people who smile, telling the truth, speaking to the public. Okay. That is why all these attacks take place.
Right. So that of course, being the prime function of government today is, and the parent corporation is to systemically eradicate voices of reason and probity, integrity, and veracity from public life altogether. Correct. Delightful play by the Luciferians. I rather suspect they're going to fail abysmally in the days ahead in Canada. But just to contextualize for my audience, why would the parent corporation, the globalist infrastructure, the Sabbateans, why would they make their way toward Pastor Artur and Laura Lynn and Kevin Johnston? Why cherry pick individuals like that in the hinterland of Canada? Simply put, friends, Canada is a prime asset, is a prime collateral behind the Commonwealth. It is one of the pillars upon which the Commonwealth rests as a collateral, as an asset. The souls of the people are collateralized into treasury bonds. The wealth of the nation of Canada, a huge tract of contiguous land, is a formidable multi-quadrillion dollar asset within the belly of the Commonwealth, which of course is what props up Cronus, the crown of England, Cronus, the titan that devours its own young when it's not pedophiling them. And of course, that's backed up by the Vatican complex, the Sabbatean complex there. That's just to contextualize. Would you say, Laura Lynn, that that's somewhat accurate?
I'm so glad that you just mentioned the Luciferians, because all morning as I've been preparing for this, I'm like, why is this happening in our country? We have literally been seized by the Luciferians. We see it in Joe Biden as well. Our prime minister, he is the most corrupt. Justin Trudeau is the most corrupt person. One of the first things that he did was make it, he reduced the age for lawful consent for sodomy to be reduced to 14 years old. This is a pedophile prime minister. And what he's done, why they're angry, is because Artur Pawlowski saw them coming, and he was the one that was sounding the alarm. So when Artur Pawlowski began talking and speaking about, because of his background from Poland, he then was able to put them on notice. And that is exactly what's happened. In all of our schools, we've got these books. I can't even read the book on your stream, because probably that would even be too much even for the people that support us, because these books are teaching young kids how to be sexualized at such a young age. When I began fighting that, I didn't even get supported by the Christians in Canada, never mind the heathens. And so Pastor Artur Pawlowski, I'll never forget, he said, Laura Lynn, come to Calgary. And I said, what are we going to do? He says, a big event. We're going to do a barbecue. And I'm like, but Pastor Artur, it's 30 below. And he's like, it's freezing, it's 30 below zero. And he said, no, it's okay. We're going to do, a barbecue for these people on the street because they need to eat. And I saw that. And then I saw the police after him, they were filming us. They're filming a pastor feeding homeless people in the middle of winter in minus 30 degrees. They came over to give me a ticket, and Pastor Artur, he just had to raise his voice. And literally, I watched as an entire troop of police officers slowly backed away because Pastor Artur dared to stand against them. And we don't have that in Canada. We don't have people standing up. You Americans do that so much better, people in other places of the world. And Pastor Artur is leading the way, but the Luciferians have seized our parliament. They have seized the places of power in our nation, in the education system, government,
media.
Yes, media and medical, the medical tyranny that we faced. We still have it. In my province, they're forcing all doctors and all nurses to still get the vaccine. The vaccine that has been proven, of course, to be extremely dangerous.
Indeed. And, one wonders why. I want to pass the stick to Scotty Sachs and then to Scott. One wonders why people don't just pick up pointy sticks and go out into the street and impale these zombies, these demons. I mean, what is it stopping? If you're going after my babies in their beds, which the satanic agrochemical and pharmaceutical industry is doing, sanctioned by the corporation government and its statutory bullshit, that's called murder. That's genocide. Why are people not able to compute this and then take action?
Okay, in Canada, I'll summarize it. This is an isolationist nation. We share one border with one country. That's the United States of America. The next closest country to us is France because they own 2 islands in the St. Lawrence River. No influence there. Next would be Greenland. No influence there. So we're not like Europe, where we can see issues taking place in Europe and solutions being offered, such as is happening in France right now. Millions of people in the streets of Paris shutting down the country. Canadians have had it way too good for way too long. In fact, this country's been prosperous since 1948. Now, we had a bit of an economic crash in 94. The country limped on ever since, and it's now the worst it's ever been. It's going to take 100 years to recover. Canadians came up, the last 3 or 4 generations came up believing that a comfortable isolationist life where everything is given to you by the government is your human right, and all you need to do to have that right is nothing. That is actually the belief here. So Americans mistakenly believe that all Canadians are polite. No, they're not. They're complacent and they're cowards. And that is a very big problem here. When you have that many generations in a row who have not had to fight for anything, they've lost the will to fight. They've lost the knowledge on how to fight. So for Canadians, it's always someone else's responsibility. It's Pastor Art's responsibility to feed the homeless. It's Kevin J. Johnston's responsibility to speak up in Alberta. It's Laura Lynn Tyler Thompson's responsibility to be the only voice in British Columbia so that we can sit back, drink beer, drink coffee, and watch hockey. No, I absolutely categorically reject the fact that Canadians are in any way, shape, or form polite. Cowardice is not a virtue. Yet, I've had many Canadians come to me saying, well, I'd love to help, but I'm a coward. They say it to me like it's the excuse of excuses, like it's the reason of reasons to not act. That's very much a cultural part of our country. You see, America, you have fought for everything you've ever owned and had. Canadians never fought for this country. What we did is we sent the RCMP out to get natives to sign documents. And if they didn't sign documents, they got shot in the head. And that was the end of that. So everything in Canada was done with paperwork. America, everything's done with fire. That's the difference between the two countries. So don't expect an uprising in Canada. It's not going to happen. Go ahead.
Very good. Scotty Sachs, question for Pastor Artur.
My question's actually for Laura Lynn that I was
crack on. Yep.
doing up, Sasha.
Yep. Go for it.
You sure are the twin sister of the beautiful Ann Vandersteel, if I've ever seen one.
I know. And I was at Reawaken, and I did an entire interview with someone who said, I love your work. I love your work. I was so thrilled, like, wow, they know me in the US. That's amazing. And at the end of the interview, he said, thank you so much, Ann, for all that you do. I was like, oh my gosh, this whole time he thought I was Ann Vandersteel.
Laura, you and I share the great pleasure of working in the belly of the beast of mainstream media for decades.
Yes.
And yet here we are working on the other side. So undoubtedly, we're here to try to wake people up. To that end, I did a little poking around online. I see you have a big event coming up this coming weekend, the Great Canadian Awakening. And undoubtedly, you're going to be there to expose, educate, inform, all those good things. Where are the Canadian people at in their Great Awakening? I don't know. My friends seem to be, they're frustrating the hell out of me, my Canadian friends. They seem to be stuck in mainstream media. They can't get past the CBC and Hockey Night in Canada, so to speak. So where are they at in your estimation as a whole?
Thank you for bringing up this amazing event. It is likened to the Reawaken events in the U.S. After being there, I've seen you guys in the background, and I've been doing media down there. And we said, we've got to bring this to Canada. So Canadians are a disappointment. Our churches, they had the vaccinated, crowd sit on the left and the unvaccinated sit on the right. They held vaccination clinics in their basements because they got paid off. We have churches now ordaining and putting in transgender people into their churches. We've fallen. Canada is completely fallen. Not one political party will even mention the unborn. And so the unborn in our country, 100,000 per year, go unprotected, with not one politician able to do a thing about it. All of the parties refuse to deal with abortion. They refuse to deal with the assault against women, with the transgender issues that are going on. They refuse to deal with parental rights, as parents are not able to stop a 14-year-old from getting their breasts removed and going on cross-sex hormones in this country. We have lost our nation. It's very sad. Pastor Artur Pawlowski is so important in this regard because he brings the power of God. We must not stop fighting, but you are right, Scotty. It is very sad. We are not courageous. As Kevin said, we have a pandemic of cowardice in Canada, and the judgment of God is upon us.
Very good. Beautifully stated. I'm going to draw this to a close. I've just seen in the green room, we have the thermonuclear gun-toting cowboy, white hat Juan O'Savin waiting, and I'm not stupid enough to keep that man waiting for longer than 1 or 2 minutes. So you'll forgive me if I wrap this up. Pastor Artur, just wanted to embrace you through the screen again, but I wanted to ask briefly about your son, Nathaniel. What's the status there, please?
Yeah, so here's an interesting part of the story. Nathaniel was detained, so technically he was arrested with his friend. His friend got a ticket, but when they realized this is my son, they refused to give him a citation because they perfectly know what is going to happen. I mean, you touch my family, you've got the whole Pawlowski's clan fighting, and I'm already fighting. I'm just waiting for the verdict on Tuesday, and it's a full force head-on collision with the city hall for what they have done. We are not going to stop. We refuse to stop. God never stopped. We already won, like I said so many times. The enemy just doesn't know it yet. My son is actually coming with me to the Reawakening Canada in a few days. So we're going to see Lynn over there and other courageous people. Josh, the youngster that was also arrested and kicked out from his high school. So the people are rising up. They're not rising up as fast as I would like, but I'm so glad to see people like, my son Nathaniel fighting on his own now with our backing, and Josh and others. So at this moment, there is no citation. There's no court. He's waiting. He was told that they're going to come to the house, but they know they come to my house, they'll have to deal with me. So far, so good. We keep pushing, or keep fighting. And no matter what, I said to them, bring it on, bring 1,000 citations, million citations. I don't care. I'll fight every single one of them until Jesus comes back. We will never stop. They will never, ever shut us up because we are lions. You cannot cage and muzzle a lion. We'll keep breaking the cages and we'll keep roaring.
Beautiful. Well, do take down names and badge numbers, and let's put their heads on spikes in the market square in the days ahead. We are not talking about fellow human beings. We're talking about deviants. We're talking about the demonic realms having now interceded fully.
The Nephilim.
Social ecology. Let us not be apologetic about this language. God bless you, Pastor Artur and Lynn and Kevin Johnston. Just a delight joining me and Scott and Scotty. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Greatly
Thank you. It's
appreciate it.
awesome. Thank you.
Wonderful, friends. Okay, guys, got to bring on the fourth leg to this chair. Can't wait. Haven't spoken to him for a while. Happy, friends, to bring on Juan O'Savin. Juan, happy to see you.
Hey, it's beautiful to get to join in here. Gosh, I wish I'd joined in a few minutes earlier. You've got this warrior princess, Lynn, who spoke so precisely, accurately about the crises that we're in. It's not just Canada, it's not just the U.S., it's all over the world. In fact, I was just listening to someone this morning that was explaining they had a person came in, a man that wanted to express as a woman and was really caught up. It's a demonic spirit, and this was in the Philippines, and the people there in this church wouldn't put up with it and cast that demon, that spirit out, and the man, his mind cleared, he changed, and he has an amazing testimony. This just happened this week, where he was in this grip. You know, we try to ascribe a mental illness to what is actually a spiritual condition. And it's not just at the individual level. Within the nation state, these countries are under a demonic attack and possession. And we're trying to deal with spiritual issues as though they were just a difference of opinion. And that just is not true. And we have to grow up and say it correctly and stop dancing around with our words about what we're actually seeing or being, what's happening to our country, our countries, really.
Very good, very good. Scott McKay, question for Juan.
Hey, my friend, how are you? Good to see you. I got to say, I heard rumors out there that you shaved your beard off and you popped up. I'm like, shit, that was a lie too. He didn't shave his beard off. And I looked down and I saw that ring and I'm like, that's a nice ring. I'm like, I can already hear the MTPs jumping all over that. They're going to give you shit about it. So I figured I'll rip the balls off of that too so they can't say anything.
Yeah.
So, we saw, you had told me quite some time ago, Trump would be, of course, indicted, arrested, however they want to classify that. And
well, this isn't the last arrest, by the way.
Okay.
In fact, I just had a conversation yesterday morning within some of the legal teams involved, and they're anticipating still the January 6th related material arrest, as well as a couple others. So the attack will be continuing on, and we don't expect this to be the end of the matter.
So what do you see in terms of this particular offensive they're going to launch against them? How does that play out? We already know, obviously, they invaded Mar-a-Lago. You mentioned today would probably be, it'd be a house arrest of some sort. It doesn't seem they have done that yet. Are they going to move toward a house arrest on this second round?
Oh, I don't think that there will ever be anything other than, some type of a house control of the president. It's not like they're going to throw him in the slammer for a week or two or something like that and pull that off. That's not happening.
Satisfied with that, Scott?
Yep, that was the main question I had.
Scotty.
Juan, I used to get my boots at an outlet off the 610 in Houston. Where do you get yours?
Actually, I'll tell you, there's plenty of great bootmakers out there, and I've probably got a dozen pair right now. But my personal favorite, I'm not advertising for them. I don't have any arrangement, but my personal favorite is Lucchese. And even when you get boots custom made, and I've got a couple pair of those, I have over the years had them. They tend to be more, stylish and like that. They'll get a beautiful fit. The ones that I had made there in Houston, they do this very intricate mapping your foot and just get it exactly right. But when you get right down to it, if you got guys that really understand the materials and like that, for me anyway, I do like the pointy boot. It's just the style I personally think is prettier.
Juan O'Savin,
Elaborate on that. Yeah, elaborate on that part.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do like the Lucchese brand.
Are we talking about boots?
Yeah.
All right, it's come to that, has it? All right.
No, wait a minute. This is actually an important topic. We got some asses to kick around here, and those asses are not going to respond as keenly to a square-toed boot as they are to a pointy boot.
Well,
some of them need the pointy boot. I'm going to leave a star on their ass because
steel
it
toe
pisses
caps,
me off.
Those are what we call in Chicago shit kickers.
Very good.
Well, I can just tell you, if you're going out and you're kicking around some of those cow pies, yeah, you do want a square-toed boot, because otherwise that thing just goes to a million pieces. You want to be able to actually get liftoff. But if you're aiming at some of these hard asses that we're trying to deal with right now across the country, they're doing a lot of stupid ass shit.
Oh yeah.
You want that pointy boot because you want to get past all that padding they got in their freaking Pampers. Okay, a lot of them are wearing adult Pampers, and you got to kick hard enough with a.
Juan, you've muted by mistake. Watch that. You want to unmute.
Let's see
There we go.
All right.
Back on.
Sheesh. Somebody muted me. I didn't mute me. They didn't want to hear what I had to say.
Joanne or someone in production, but it wasn't me. Let me just say.
We have a serious question for Juan.
I've got a serious question. My serious question is talking about the status at Darien Gap. Can we speak about that?
Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, so let's get serious here. Here in the U.S., just for an example, we had about 1,000 people a day coming throughout in El Paso as recently as 6-7 weeks ago, and that was a huge jump from a month or two ago, or a couple months back. And so people were shocked. Then it's up to 2,000 a day coming through, but that's just at one location. It's multiple locations. What the people that are trafficking people have done is they've systematized the operation and made it so efficient that rather than seeing huge surges coming through, they have a very steady, controlled stream on both sides of the border. So, for example, on the U.S. side, we have all these government service agencies as well as private groups, Catholic Children's Services, Lutheran Children's Services, similar groups. They are actually helping to facilitate the flow of these illegal immigrants into the country to be spread across the country. So, for example, in El Paso, Nino and I were just talking about this the other day, Nino Rodriguez. If there's people in your audience that aren't familiar with this former boxer champion, he was saying that they don't see those numbers on the streets in El Paso. Why? Because they're being bussed out as quickly as they come in. It used to be that the streets just got cluttered with all these people coming in and waiting for, services, ride, going house to house, looking for jobs, etc. But now they're being bussed out so they don't feel it right at the border in the same way. And they're going to Washington State, Idaho, Montana, North Dakota, New Hampshire, Vermont, Tennessee. And they're going by bus, they're going by private charter. They're being put all over America as quickly as they come in, so they're not seen at the border. And the Texas governor can wash his hands of it and say, gosh, we're doing everything we can to take the pressure off the people of Texas. Okay, so the pressure's all across the country. And but now I get to Darien Gap. Darien Gap is this choke point down in Panama on the other side of the canal. And Darien Gap is where these people are all funneling into. Now, Michael Yon, who you should have on your show, he was just down at Darien Gap. He's getting ready to move, and we've talked about rendezvousing further north on some stuff. Michael Yon has been interviewing a lot of the people coming in to find out where they're from, what's going on, including thousands of Chinese nationals. And the vast majority are military-aged men, very fit, huge wads of cash in their pockets. They're not coming here or to the Darien Gap without assistance. You don't swim from China over to Panama and just show up there, jump out of the water and start walking north. This is nation state level aided transportation to get to this location. And they're coming from all over. In fact, we're seeing people out of Africa. Again, they're not swimming over in a rowboat from Africa. Who's helping them? They're not stowaways on big ships. They are being moved with precision to get into these crowds of people coming out of South America headed north. Now, what's especially disturbing, that everybody in this audience needs to be aware of. And if you're not in the US, if you're in Canada, if you're in Mexico, if you're in other places around the world even, you got to hear what I'm about to say here. In these crowds of Chinese immigrants and African, they are seeing bizarre diseases that you haven't seen in the modern age very frequently anywhere in the world. They're seeing cholera, dengue fever, tuberculosis, okay, and other diseases. These people are coming in diseased. The military men are of the opinion that they're coming here and that's where they're going to get taken care of. But the whole time in the trek north, they will be around all the other immigrants. You are watching, instead of, see, disease and some of these things, they burn out if you try to do it as an aerosol. It can be tracked if it's in a food or something. When it comes in with a human carrier, it can fester, it can reside, it can be there, and they, with all their contacts, all their interactions, can begin to spread it much more effectively on the door handles, at the businesses. Remember, I just had breakfast a little while ago, and we were talking about it, and one of the people in the group who was familiar with some of the business in the area said, you realize that about 70% of the people in this location are illegal immigrants. In this restaurant where we're at, what if these people are getting in and they're serving the food and doing the other stuff and they've got some of these diseases? You have to have a health permit to do the work, but the health permit's for the handling. Doesn't necessarily mean you're not sick. And so are we now becoming invaded intentionally? Look, if these people are showing up and they're being aided to make the trek, were they sick when they were recruited? Or did they get sick by intention? This is a nation state level war. It's 5th generation warfare, war by another means. You're introducing essentially a weapon of mass destruction, a biological weapon, but in a way that it's subtle enough and it has a long enough burn time that it can get deep into the fabric of the country before it completely explodes. And that's not just the United States, that's Canada too, that's Mexico on the way.
Yeah.
Okay, we are in a very, very, very precarious moment, because the other thing is this, they're talking about having the conversion here in the US to digital currency. Now, and by the way, Israel's going to be making the switch shortly also, is what's been said. I had a talk with one of the people in the Knesset the other day. So the reason that's important, how do you make people want to get off a nuclear submarine? Within our communities, a lot of people, their cash, I'm not putting it in the bank, I don't trust them. You've seen the bank runs and there's crisis. Okay, I'm gonna hold on to my cash. Okay, so all of a sudden, if all of these people are coming in with all their cash, and a lot of these immigrants, what's wild, they're coming over the border, supposedly broke, destitute, don't have anything, huge wads of cash. Is that cash similarly polluted, or is it going to be along the way? And all of a sudden now you're transmitting disease with all that currency. How do you get people that normally wouldn't want anything, they want to hold it in that way, do their transactions privately, want to stop doing that? This is the mechanism. We are being herded, sleep to the slaughter, cattle to the slaughter. And that's the intention, to completely take control of the people in North America, enslave them 50 ways from Sunday, including how you're allowed to think. The transgender is a perfect example. You must comply. I don't care if you're in a church. You're going to allow that people with mental illness, which is what's really going on, who are demonically possessed, will be allowed full free expression in every area of society, including religious, and you cannot say a word, or you're the one that's going to prison and is going to get cuffed.
Yeah, that was a clever program, wasn't it? A really clever program to insert. And of course, that's the Fabianist and Tavistockian agenda, which goes back really up to a century ago when they began that cultural Marxist understanding of what it took to infiltrate academia and the entertainment complex with stealth, which of course led to the kind of liberal intellectualizing of the middle class. And the liberal intellectualism became, in a sense, the enabling class for the satanic and Luciferic echelon to come straight in, rather like when the Bush clan parachuted into the Oval Office. It was hardcore, in my view, generational ritual satanic and Luciferic entities coming into the mainframe. Do you think that's more or less accurate?
Sasha, that is so right on the cash. Let me just add one thing. When you get into the entertainment realm, the reason that's important because it affects how people think. It may seem that you're just watching something, but it's like the old saying, you are what you eat. If mentally this is your food, you're going to become more and more like what you're eating, if you will. And so let's use National Academy of Arts and Sciences. That's where you get your Oscars from, okay? And all these Hollywood awards, etc. So they love to do things in plain sight. They love to mirror truths. They like to con you into believing their way, suck you in. So, for example, we choose life. But what's the opposite of life? Evil. Put life or living live in a mirror. What do you have? Live. The mirror of it is evil. Evil. They want you to choose. The scriptures say, I put before you today good and evil. You have to choose which way you want to go. So again, how obvious they make it? National Academy of Arts and Sciences, National Academy of Theatrical Arts and Sciences.
Yeah.
So what's the reversal of that? NATAS. The reversal is Satan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And they do it right in plain sight. That was no accident. They are worshiping their God in plain sight. Even the transgender issue. Why would people want to be transgender? Why would Michael want to be foisted upon the country? Remember, the whole world was made to play along with the theater that Michael Obama is a woman, which is totally fallacious. He had these girls. Bullshit. It was the doctor's girls that helped play this fraud on the country and on the world.
Yeah.
While you were watching that, you were being forced to go along with a lie in plain sight. Now, why are they doing that? Because they worship Satan. Satan goes by 1,000 names. One moment it's a male, and the next moment it's a female. ISIS, okay? What's the deal with this ISIS? Yeah, ISIS is a female expression of Satan, and Osiris, a male expression. They want to be both sexes, not one or the other. Michael's not going in and getting cut. He wants to be both. That's the Baphomet art, where it's both male and female expression at the same time. They want to be like their father, the devil, being both male and female. They don't want to be one or the other. And then that spirit that goes along with that, it confuses society. So they're sowing confusion into our children, into society. And then we get to the most extreme expression of it. And as Laura said, and I just love her for it, I look forward to the time when we get to talk together. Laura was commenting on young girls going through puberty, being able to defy even their parents and go in. under some kind of psychological drama and have their breasts cut off. Young boys going in and having their genitals cut, and then going on life-altering drugs and through psychosis to change their bodies hormonally to develop breasts. You know, it's everything is that's left is turned right. Everything that's right is made left. It's all about confusion and sowing, drilling holes in the fabric of society, the foundation of society, so that America goes off the rails. The rails break beneath it, pulling the spikes out from the rails, so that we crash. Because out of the chaos, as America goes into confusion and chaos, as Canada goes into confusion and chaos, they can own the far side of the disaster. When we become so weak, we can't think straight, we're unable to care for ourselves, to lift ourselves up, they come in and crush us the rest of the way, and we become food for these demons and these monsters. It is a spiritual war. It's that clear. And to deny that is to be in denial of reality at this point in time. And that's where we have to decide. It's a choice. Live or die. Pick a lane.
Indeed, indeed, beautiful. And you know, as one is reminded, you know, the satanic pledge is really about anti-life. It's cult of death. It's mockery and scorn of all in creation and all that is goodly and godly, which is why the sacrifice of innocence and the harvest of innocence focuses on babes, on infants, on the youngest, because they are closer to God. And anything that will mock God or defile or desecrate divinity is really what these satanic echelon are seeking to do. It's all about violation of universal law in order to continue to sustain a luciferic parasitic paradigm of time and space continuum and soul harvest, plasma harvest of living systems. We are the angelics here, the humans amongst us who cohere to what Juan O'Savin speaks to, what Scott McKay speaks to, what Scotty Sachs speaks to, what I speak to. We're all cohered to the upliftment and the affirmation of creation and of God, and wearing the Christed mantle, rather like our beloved pastor Artur Pawlowski and the other heroes we've had on the show today. That Christed mantle takes us forth into the lion's den and through the valley of death. We have a very considerable audience looking in today. I'm very glad that you've all made it. It takes us to the top of the hour. Just want to thank Scott McKay, Scotty Sachs, and Juan O'Savin, and ask each of you for your closing reflections. I'm going to start with you, if you don't mind, Juan O'Savin, closing reflections on status quo, where we're at as we move into the second quarter of 2023.
This group, these people in a generic sense that we're fighting, they believe that karma does go with actions. So what they do is they try, and this is a common feature among Satanists and covens, they will show you how to do the magic, how to do the spell, the concoction, but then you're supposed to do it. Why do they want to do that? Because the bad karma comes back on you if you do it. What they're baiting us to do is things that are evil and destructive. Sins of commission, things we do, and sins of omission, things we fail to do when we know to make a choice. And then they want the repercussions, the judgment of an almighty God to come back on us, because we are the ones that have done or failed to do things at critical moments. They're baiting us to go along with the evil. They themselves are actually doing very little of the evil. They're training us. They're baiting us. That's what Tavistock was all about. That's what the Rand Institute's all about, is getting us as a people to go along with and participate in doing the evil. If we as adults cannot protect the children, will not lift our finger to protect young children from these horrors and these life altering permanent changes that will destroy their ability to procreate, to live a life in a classic sense. Once they're permanently marked, altered, damaged for the remainder of their life, they become suicidal. It's about wiping out an entire generation. We cannot let them trick us through all of their theater, all of their magical spells and acts, into going along and participating, even if it's just watching and wringing our hands, sins of omission, things we fail to do. We cannot fail to act and take a stand, verbalize and come against, and then even renounce in the name of Jesus by the blood of Christ, and bind those evil spirits that have been able to get loose in our society. If we will not protect the children, why would God raise his finger to protect us as individuals from the crime and disease and horrors and drugs that are coming like a freight train to North America right now and across the world? If America dies, if this is successful, we have no place to help stop it other places in the world, and the flood is on.
Indeed, indeed. Juan, thank you so very much, brother. Scott McKay, closing thoughts, brother.
Yeah, Juan has it dead accurate. There is a choice to live and die, and he actually he just pirated one or two of my thoughts, but he's completely accurate. Is that just to have knowledge of what's going on and stand by and do nothing is absolute evil in and of itself, probably even worse. And the last thing I would say is that, as we're moving forward into the greatest, epicenter of the battle as it is now, people have to continue to come back to the idea that spiritual battle just doesn't mean something internal and meditative. It is an out in the open assault by the satanic realms. And you have to understand, number one, what it looks like. Number two, it's end game. And when you see it, you have to call it out. There's too many people will not become provocative in the message that has to be put out there. And again, I don't know if it's just about waking people up or changing the conscious projection of an offensive weapon against the enemy. I personally am not in the business anymore of waking people up. I believe at this point, everything is a reveal, and those people who at this point can't wake up out of this nightmare based on what they now see. They likely, many of them are going to the greater majority. I think it's time to start getting the lions like Artur, Pawlowski, and other people like that, bringing them to a convergent point where we again start to unify those people who are willing to bring the provocative message to the world, because that is the unifying field, in my opinion, that frequency of a full offensive with the vociferousness that we have to have, or we've had up until this point in time. That's got to be the unified field where those voices who see it aren't afraid to stand on any stage anywhere and say it full throttle, 100% on offense, because these people do fear us. They fear unification and they fear our numbers. And if that anything is going to do this with the least amount of damage, it is that powerful voice and that fearlessness that Artur, Pastor Artur, is exhibiting like few people in the world.
Indeed. Well, I'm all for the alchemizing of hate into love, and of black into white, and all that transcendence, transmutation, transmogrification, all of that stuff. I understand the dynamic of the duende, the indivisible line of how we need to alchemize ourselves and move away from sorrow into joy, and thereby change the parameters of how we engage life and relationship with God, with nature, and with one another altogether. But having said that, I personally am failing to see how it is going to be possible to alchemize at the civilizational level, at the socio-cultural and socio-ecological level, without blood, without some kind of real remedy playing out in the market square, so to speak. And I'm choosing my words as carefully as I can, but I did grow up in a fucking war. I do know what the smell is of death, and I've just returned from Sudan. I pit myself for the last 25, 30 years in North Africa, the Middle East, and dangerous places. So I'm not one of those people who, looks at the world through books and through the Discovery Channel. I've got a lot more of a kind of up close and personal relationship with how the world works on the ground, especially the disenfranchised elements of the world, the so-called developing world, black skin, brown skin, brothers of mine and sisters of mine. Point I'm trying to make is I fail to see how we're going to do this without some kind of remedy playing out in the market square. When I say heads on spikes, I'm almost serious. Maybe that's redolent of the medieval days, but these deviants, these devils, these demons who are inhabiting our parliaments, inhabiting school assemblies, inhabiting the banks and the high street and the corporatocracy, these people who are inhabiting the legislature in our governance superstructure and through the statutory pen are wielding genocide and death, sure genocide and death, certain death, when they flick that statutory pen and impose further satanic molecules, synthetic molecules into the food supply, the water supply, into every goddamn product on every goddamn supermarket shelf. And no one in any town or city or village anywhere on earth can do anything but poison their fucking babies. That's the statutory pen. That's how fucked up the corporation, the parent corporation government has become. You cannot escape the poisons, the weaponized biosphere, air, soil, and water. So you tell me, people, I'm referring to the audience here, how do we bring about remedy? Scotty Sachs, your thoughts on remedy in the market square. What is it going to come to?
Well, Sasha, as I listen to our conversations today on ARiSE Guerrilla News, it reminds me I know for sure we're winning the information war. When you consider this platform speaking openly out there for the world to see, when you consider Scott's platform, Tipping Point, my radio show, Sovereign Radio, when you consider events like the Reawaken America Tour and the Great Canadian Awakening, when you consider organizations like the Sovereignty Coalition that's being led by Michelle Bachmann, that's fighting the WHO, I believe we are winning the information war. The spiritual war, I was quite certain we're winning, and I think I still believe I'm of the opinion we're winning the spiritual war. And so the question is, if we can win those two wars, is it enough to win the ultimate war and put the cabal in their rightful place? And I agree with you, Sasha. Tom Renz and you and I have talked about this. We need public hangings. We need a catharsis. We need the healing. In order for us to get the healing we need a public hanging. We need to see heads on chopping blocks. I don't care if it's a guillotine, a public hanging, a public shooting. We need to see some of that for us to move forward. I truly believe that.
Indeed. Well, a ho to that as far as I'm concerned.
Hey, can I just jump in?
Please,
One
please
quick
do.
thing all of you guys need to be paying attention to, and it'll just take a second. I know we're close to the end, Sasha.
No
But also, there needs to be an immediate conversation, and all of you hosts need to be paying close attention. The Brits in the U.S. have put depleted uranium rounds in the Ukraine now, and it's been going on for about 6 months. I've been talking about it for months, but it's become very serious. Normally, we have to track where those rounds have been going. They've been just putting them out there, and there's no intent to try and keep track of where they're at all. We know from other locations, such as Iraq and Kosovo, places where these depleted uranium rounds have been used, that the cancer rates jump radically, and not just in a very tiny isolated area. Sasha, you talk about poisoning the biosphere. We know, and there's tremendous research now going all the way back to Hiroshima, that we see that cancer rates worldwide jumped radically during the above ground experiments. And now we see regionally that there's this continuing escalation of cancers, and it's tied directly to the use of these depleted uranium rounds. They're going to make a nuclear dumpster out of that Central European region where you have all the grains that come out of northern Ukraine, and airflow patterns that really swirl and hit all those countries in there. It's going to be a disaster. And then they have weaponizing facilities that have all sorts of risks, especially if there's a dam failure above some of those locations that could literally make Central Europe uninhabitable for billions of years. I'm serious. There's different types of materials that have different half-lives. Some of that stuff is the most toxic that can exist, and it's right in the firing range. They want to destroy, like a mob does an insurance fire after they've wiped out the sporting goods store or the restaurant, and they want to wipe out the books. That Ukraine region has been used as a money laundering location for political activities all over the world to pay off their crime families, etc. And now they want to destroy the crime scene, and they want to make a nuclear dumpster of that whole region. This cannot be allowed to stand, and all you guys need to bone up on this and understand it. They're getting ready. It's the May move, spring offensive to push back in Russia is coming right now, and they're going to use those rounds, and it's going to be extremely serious for a very long time. People need to speak out against it. I thank you, Sasha, for letting me just throw that one little tidbit in there. I want everybody to be thinking about this.
Thank you, Juan. I think that's a very, very important piece, and I really thank you for laying that down. And perhaps on the next show, in 2 weeks' time, we could actually focus a little more on that, because that messaging could be axiomatic. So thank you for that. Scotty Sachs, thank you, brother. Scott McKay, thank you as ever. And Juan O'Savin, just a delight, gents. Thanks so much for joining us today. Okay, friends, I'm going to play you out here with a very brief piece. The crime scene of the last 3 years. The smoking gun is human mRNA, or not so human mRNA, if you consider the intervention that's taken place. And as you know, I've been doing a great deal in that area of biotech. I'm going to play out the small introduction I did with Maria Chrysler, with the Regenesis formula, which is the precursor to the anti-spike, which is coming out in 2 months' time from Dr. Nicolescu in Romania. I'll be with her and the general and some of our brass in 2 days' time. I'm flying there tomorrow. So I'll do some broadcasting from Bucharest, and I'll give some closer, keener timelines on the anti-spike protein antidote, which is imminent. It's in the laboratory right now. I've been told fulfillment can happen in about 8 weeks' time. I just want to narrow the focus on that. Redeeming our DNA, mRNA from the grip of this satanic thrall is my main focus, and I'm doing it unapologetically. So stand by as I play out this piece of media. Thank you for the audience. It's a very big audience. I'm very grateful that you joined us today. Thanks to Joanne for putting together a fantastic assembly as usual. I'm sharing this video, people, and I'll see you in 2 weeks' time. I think I will be in Istanbul in 2 weeks' time. Stand by. Friends, countrymen, happy to greet you today, Friday, the 7th of April in the year 2023. And we're contributing today, I think, to one of the first steps of what I've been long calling the mechanics of ascension. And yes, to the cynics, they will howl with mirth. They'll throw stones and pebbles at us. But those of us who carry the plasma, carry the light within, know exactly what we're talking about. I've long been speaking about biological ascension, about ascension being a biological phenomenon every bit as much as it is a alchemical or spiritualized phenomenon. And I'm thrilled that after a year and a half of very intense work, and I can tell you it's been very intense, we are presenting today, finally, the New Earth Regenesis formula, which I believe is going to be a cornerstone in the seismic shift in human health, wellness. And I'm delighted to introduce a much beloved icon in the medical science fraternity, my colleague, friend, and partner in the New Earth Regenesis formula, the one and only Maria Chrysler. Maria, very happy to see you today.
Hi, Sasha. Pretty happy today.
Well, it's a good day. It's been a long journey. We've taken so many steps and navigated so many different remarkable aspects to this discovery. You're bringing, I don't know how many decades of acumen. No one would know it by looking at you, but you've got a pretty fantastical backstory. Can you give a more sciencey overview, but in simple speak, for my very, very clever audience? What are we looking at?
So I definitely don't want to lose everybody, but I'm really excited about this formulation. A lot of the audience, they're familiar with our CV Well tincture, so this is our base formulation. What we did, and it did take about a year and a half, because we have some very special scientists that are friends of ours that are heavily involved in this project as well. So, a lot of collaboration between myself and them, and Sasha overseas, just making sure that we had the perfect addition to this already, fantastic baseline formulation. And what that is it's a polycosanol. And some of you are familiar with this ingredient and some of you aren't. There is a synergy between plants, and by that I mean the cannabinoid, dealing with the endocannabinoid system, and the polycosanol itself. So you're talking about two plants. Your body readily accepts plants better than anything else on the planet. It recognizes this. It works with plants. Plants are very healing, and I have this tagline that we use, that plants do it better, and it's actually the truth, and we're going to show you how and why. The base formula actually won the Best Anti-Aging Product Award for 2022 internationally, just on its own. So now what we've done is we've improved it tenfold, in my opinion, because you have now two different compounds in a cannabinoid, and so a cannabinoid isolate and this polycosanol that will actually reach your myocardium. That's what's really remarkable, and there is a synergy between these. And then what we do is we use these as our vehicle to drive a group of ingredients to the cell at the cellular level. We're getting tissue regeneration, all kinds of fun things. And some of it, is detailed on your email, on my email, Sasha. But there are specific pathways that both of these ingredients use, and they use them together. And the synergy couldn't be more perfectly wound. It's really exciting. It's pretty much a new discovery. It is patent pending, and we're both thrilled to be able to finally bring it.
Indeed, I did make some sort of preemptive announcements at the Conscious Life Expo, warned folks that it was coming down the pike. And, I've also had to explain to my audience, which is not one that's, it's not an audience that's particularly sitting in the center ground of the health and wellness stuff. We're more about consciousness, innovation, breakthrough, intellectual stuff, but there's a fair bit of health and wellness thrown in. So I'm trying to educate my networks, my audience, as to the vanguard, the breakthroughs in medical science, given that the assault against human mitochondria is now the gravest existential threat, arguably, in the history of this world. Mm-hmm. It's not a joke. People are dropping dead all around the world. From what I'm learning on the front line of activism in this space, is that we are spiking 300-400% over last year in many cases, deaths, funeral parlors, and and the audit. The audit is coming in, and it's pretty apocalyptic. So we are also, unfortunately, dream spelled in such a way and spellbound by a popular myth in academia and in entertainment, and obviously by government, into believing certain very narrow narratives. So the Anthony Fauci, Bill Gates sock puppet show is now pretty clear to anyone who has a pulse. Anyone who believes that Gates and Fauci are saviors are people themselves who are beyond redemption and beyond help. So I think humanity, in a sense, is bifurcated now into the goodly, godly, and the ones who are shuffling towards subhumanism, AI, blah, blah. Redeeming human mitochondria is a serious business. How possible is it for us to reclaim the damage that's been done to our DNA at this collective level?
So I'm so glad that I'm thankful that you worded it that way. Your audience knows, my audience knows, that we have to be very crafty in the way that we speak. But I will tell you that one of the processes, one of the main metabolic pathways that we're using, and we're doing this naturally, by the way, it actually contributes to mitochondrial biogenesis itself. And these ingredients actually use this pathway. So between homeostasis for your redox system, which pulls out all of your reactive oxygen species, as a process for your energy metabolism, autophagy, glucose and lipid metabolism, and including the mitochondrial biogenesis itself, we are actually able to access those roots, turn on those pathways, do it naturally, and finally give people, something that they will be able to use and replace, 7, 8 other products that they're using. And this is absolutely bioavailable. We have, results, obviously protecting our telomeres and slightly lengthening them. This is a before and after that was just the baseline formulary without our new and improved ingredient. So this is a 5-year progression of age, but we took 15 years off of her face, which is remarkable. And both, ingredients, they actually do contribute to tissue repair. There are 4 aspects of aging: immune, metabolic, liver, and kidney. And most people don't know that. It takes all of your systems and your immune system to actually rebuild your tissue. We happen to have a direct route to one of the receptors that gets to 12 different immune cells. So on your left, or I guess I should say on the woman's face, that's just a 2-month result of tissue lift, texture, and tone. And that's literally 2 months sublingual. The bumps that I'm not allowed to say what they are, that most people know, the mouth sores, that was a 4-hour progression of results. So it's not hard to decrease inflammation with this formulation. This is a result, it's an ablative laser treatment. After the first treatment, this woman actually contacted me, and on the day 3 of treatment, I said, go ahead and apply it topically because you can use it topically as well. And she woke up overnight and all of the redness and inflammation was gone. So between the second and third picture, this is a 3.5 week, and this is again sublingual. This is an autoimmune issue that we don't say the name of it. It was along with a bacterial issue. A couple of ingredients in this formulation were just given to us as an antimicrobial patent. So they do contribute to this. Same thing, this is the base formulary. This is actually a 24-hour result. And some people will recognize what this is, of course. We are regrowing skin. This is hair regeneration in literally 4 weeks. This is 1 month.
I mean, that's pretty in itself. That's pretty
I'll tell you that they actually got pregnant. This couple wrote to me on Instagram personally, and they were actually pregnant not long after that. So, yeah. This is a telomere result. So this woman is 47 years of age, and her telomere length is 9.35, which is approximately the length of a 10-year-old. So we know that we're getting right where we need to be.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Very good. Okay, so let's just momentarily speak a little bit about the compliances and the rules and the regulations. You're not allowed to say that we can cure things. You're not allowed to say what are the do's and don'ts. What are we allowed to say, and what are we not allowed to say in this field?
We are allowed to say transformation, body transformation, skin transformation. We have a lot of results showing full body transformation that I believe if you can pull up. They're pretty intense, pretty amazing stuff. And because we know that we're accessing certain systems within the body. Of course, we can't say cure or treat. We're not allowed to say anything like that. And we're not allowed to say names of pathology. So we can show you pictures. You can send us pictures. We're not allowed to solicit. This is how hard it is to be in this space. Pharma can go out and do whatever they want to people, right? As long as they list the 2,000 contraindications and side effects.
Including death.
Including death. Including death. But here we have something absolutely natural that we can tell you by reducing inflammation in the body, you can actually start to walk back a lot of different pathological states.
What's this all about?
So this is an immunodex. This is a total antioxidant function and total immune function. This person's telomeres, so the white blood cells were measured. Intracellular micronutrients were measured after taking the base formula. And the total immune function was at 77. You will see that that's higher than a 10 or a 20-year-old. Pretty remarkable.
And if we're talking about age reversal or anti-aging, again, what's the parlance? What is the usable parlance? I've certainly seen the results myself. I felt the results myself. I'm one of the lucky ones who's been able to, in the last, well over the last year, been able to dabble with the formulas as they've been improving and getting to the gate. But what are we allowed to say as it relates to aging, anti-aging?
We can say anti-aging. We can say skin transformation. Transformation is a big word that we can say. And when we in 30 days from now launch our big affiliate MLM hybrid, we'll be able to help people state what they can say. But transformation is going to be a big word. We just have to do a lot of educating and teach people that at the cellular level, when we're transforming a cell, it can mean all of these different things. And we will use everything in our toolbox that we possibly can to, negate any negative feedback we might get from any 3-letter agency. But yeah.
And what are your thoughts about those 3-letter agencies, these goddamn criminal conspiracy organizations that are all directed foundationally towards disease and destructivity of the human family? Everyone knows that. We all know the AMA, the FDA, the WHO, the CDC, and so on are part of a composite of multilateral and international agencies which have done everything to progress the Rockefeller covenant of eradicating naturopathy and introducing synthetic molecules into the world as the source code of the kingdom of the devil that we've seen proliferate in the last century. So do you see these filthy agencies and their troglodytes surviving much longer? That's really my question to you as a vanguard research scientist and somebody who's developing breakthrough product.
So I'll tell you this is what's a little bit scary. And I'll try not to beat around the bush, but whenever all of this first started, this pandemic first started, I co-authored research studies that were against masks. They were all the physiological reasons that we shouldn't be doing this and all of the diseases that it causes. My papers were up on ResearchGate. ResearchGate is a scientific organization that hosts all of our research, right? I had over 500 different references in those papers. And after NASA looked at it and viewed it, because you can see who views your articles, right? After it was viewed 6 different times by NASA, my papers were pulled down from ResearchGate, completely pulled down, and I was kicked out. And that was after about 30 to 40,000 views. So then you go to digging, right? And who owns ResearchGate? Well, a couple of movie stars, which I'm not sure why that would be, Vanguard and BlackRock. I wouldn't be surprised if they also have ownership in those 3-letter agencies. I have experience with the CDC myself as a young scientist. I contributed to a mutating Shigella, an invention, or not an invention, but an observation and a discovery. And I was completely locked out of it. Why? Because I was in my 20s probably, and I had no clue. But that's what they do. I don't think that knowing where we're going in this world and people waking up to the naturopathy, the Ayurvedic medicines, I don't think that they're going to be around much longer. I give them a couple of years for all of the walls to come down, because I'm along with you and hundreds of others are creating a parallel system. And that's really what we want to preach to people. Is I'm extremely passionate about this. I worked in the industry for 25 years of my life. I know the back end, the front end, the sides, all of it. I'm not impressed.
Yeah.
I actually wasn't even impressed about where I was going or how I felt. So we have to create this parallel system. And
Indeed. Well, I have to say, I mean, I've personally been on the savage bitch end of that stick with the establishment a couple of years ago, and I saw how they concoct and construe overnight a conspiracy between powerful agencies, the police, the judiciary, and they weaponize and target and move in for the kill. If you're not very fleet of foot, which I was and my team were at the time, and if you cannot afford the very expensive crisis PR and barristers at law, which I could afford, I would have been behind bars and my team would have been behind bars, almost certainly.
Right.
And that was, for me, the big slap in the face and the wake-up call of how to be prepared to navigate this space. I mean, we're breaking through here with the New Earth Regenesis formula. When I first came tapping on your window pane saying, got some stuff, you've got some amazing stuff. Are you able to combine them to create something extraordinary that will do 2 things? One, massively boost human immunity instantly. And secondly, participate in the more fun bit, which is the lurch towards immortality, the reverse aging, systemic age reversing. And you said yes, and thus began a long dialogue relationship between you and leading laboratories and medical research scientists. And finally, here we are, a year and a half later. We've got it, we've done it. Now, this is the first, and we've got some other stuff coming down the pike, which my audience knows about. The spike protein neutralizer is our next big product that's coming out in the next few weeks. The reason I want to talk about this is because I'm a huge fan of my beloved friends, Dr. Christina Rahm and Clayton and the Root Brands. And people have been writing to me, literally hundreds and hundreds of letters in the last couple of weeks. Does that mean you're bailing on Root Brands? No, it doesn't. It categorically doesn't. So I just want to give a word here to my people. Root Brands, as I see it, and this incidentally is the Root link in courtesy and honor of my friends. Root Brands for me is really about clarifying the blood in a fantastical way, about the chelation of the blood in a fantastical way, the resetting of the microbiome again in a fantastical way, and the zero in kind of focusing, regulating the dopamine and the serotonin in a fantastical way. So there's a very unique bundle of offerings there. Be crystal clear about that. I am not bailing on Roots. I'm screaming it from the rooftops because I think it's an integral cornerstone also of this path that we're on. So please don't mistake me for thinking, don't think that I'm bailing on Root Brands. I'm not. I'm still screaming about it. It's just that what we've done here is really taking this into fantastical immune boosting and age reversal. So that for me is the twin peaks of what we're doing with the New Earth Regenesis formula.
there's a lot of synergy with all things. Consider this particular New Earth Regenesis product. Consider this multidimensional. I was talking to a friend the other day, and he looked at it, and he's a very crafty electrical style scientist. We already know that this base formula increases the electrical conductivity of cells systemically. We know that. We've known that for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Now, what we've done is we've made it even more multi-dimensional. So we are able to access all kinds of different other pathways. And it's no longer just you don't want to just take NAD, for instance, okay, for cellular or age reversal. That is a unilateral approach. What we're offering here is a true multi-dimensional, full spectrum style immune product that literally leads to reverse aging of all things. So this is, we understand it's a price tag. It lasts for a couple of months, but this is an amazing product. And the way the ingredients come together is nothing short of divine. I'm so impressed with it.
I would agree with that. I don't think that's hyperbolic language at all. I mean, my whole life's journey has been about this resurrection, the consciousness in action leading to absolution, leading to redemption, which then self-manifests as revelation, salvation. And we're the ones that we've been waiting for to coin that really ghastly phrase that's been beaten around the bush. But it is true.
Yeah.
It's absolutely true. And for me, my interest in the last few years, and the reason why I launched the Lazarus Symposium and the Lazarus Initiative, was to really start to consolidate the genius network that I've, in the last over 20 years, have assembled with the leading archaeocosmologists and astrophysicists and people in all these extraordinary areas of focus, vanguard focus, pioneering focus. And all of us variously, the net takeaway that I get from dealing with the world's greatest scientists, innovators, minds and hearts, is that we are all of us breaching the veil through our consciousness in action. We are all of us pushing against the matrix, against the harvest wheel that we've been born into. And because we all foundationally share that divine frequency, which is that we've come of age as a species, as a genus, and we can take it from here. So the Homo sapiens sapien, as we now, I think the word is transmogrify, into Homo sapien luminous, that is absolutely our divine prerogative. And it's also what links all of our minds and hearts. Would you agree with that sentiment, or would you think I've tiptoed into fluffy land?
No, and I like that you call it fluff, but I'll tell you something. It's real and it's true, because science and metaphysics and spirituality are all combined. And I believe truly that we have found a way to unlock so many keys, or use so many keys to unlock so many doors. It is remarkable. I mean, there will be research about this product ongoing for the next probably 5 years or more, just learning everything that we're able to do. What's really remarkable too is that we're doing it with microdosing. Literally, you're looking at 5 drops 1 time a day, and you've got everything that you need. That's how powerful the delivery system is. And we're using Mother Nature to do it. It's divine. It's so cool.
Beautiful. Well, Maria, if there's anything else you feel we should add, that's taken us to half an hour, that I wanted it to be a short delivery to launch the New Earth Regenesis formula. The bottom line, I think I'm right in saying, is that through sashastone.com and through your site, we both extended an offering to our networks. And what does our production and fulfillment look like from here?
So what we have right now is we have all of our raw materials. We got everything that we need from special locations. It looks like, so our pre-orders, we extended this offering just to our own audiences first via email blast. So it looks like we might have about half of our remaining initial launch left in bottles. So encourage everybody to jump on because we only have 5,000 to start with. This is the pre-order phase. And then what we're going to do, it looks like about mid-May, everything will ship out. So that's
very good. Very good. Okay. And in the meantime, people can review this short video, or they can go to Maria's site and check out the science, the clinical studies, and so on and so forth. Maria, thanks very much. This is the first in many drops we're going to be doing because, as I mentioned a little while earlier, you and I are both we're both taking this fight right to the to the foot of the citadel. We will, by the grace of the living God, terminate this foundational evil of agrochemical and pharmaceutical industrial mayhem that has been unleashed against all living systems, not just humanity. We will terminate it in our generation. Our networks of enlightened humanoids will be joining us in that. I'm greatly looking forward to this journey fearlessly. Much love to you, Maria, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, friends, that's it. Please, I'll play you out on the clip again. Get your pen and paper ready. And what to say? As I said earlier, we take it from here. Much love.